DA, can you hear me? Okay. Am I coming through? I hope. Okay, good. We had a storm come through last night, and I guess the power cycled, and when it did, it just fried my computer's brain. Yeah, it's the only thing that saved my ass. It's always something.
Good evening, folks. Thank you guys for joining us on the Nightmare Hunters podcast. We got a full house for you guys tonight, man. I think it's going to be an awesome one. Heath was running a little bit late. He was having some computer issues, but he is with us now. But in the house, we got Robbie Jed Rains, fresh off his whirlwind worldwide book release of his newest book. We've got Luka T. Jacobs in the house, and she was with us about a month ago. I'm sure you guys remember her. And Heath was with us just shortly before her. But I wanted to bring both of them back because, well, not only do they both write in the similar genres that both Robbie and I write, but they have a unique approach to the writing process. And I want to give them a second here to introduce themselves to all of y'all who may not know who they are. But if you aren't familiar, you need to check their books out. So Luka, ladies first, tell us a little bit about yourself, where to find your books, and your links will be popping up in the chat.
Hi guys, and hello everyone in the chat. I'm Luka T. Jacobs. I'm clearly, I guess, from the accent, I'm Australian. You can grab my cryptid thrillers from lukatjacobs.com, but primarily amazon.com. And I think that's about it. I'm pretty much a newbie. Just about 18 months I've been doing it, so I'm loving it.
Heath, your turn, buddy.
Okay. Heath Stallcup from Oklahoma. I don't have a fancy accent like some people. I should have moved to Australia.
You did an Oklahoma accent. That's good enough.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's true. I do.
You do speak fluent hillbilly.
I do. Well, hillbillies, that appellation is a little different, but I can understand most of what they say. Let's see. I think I'm a little over 13 years into trying to be an overnight success. Failed miserably. Yes. But yeah, I didn't realize until just recently, I got 50 titles under my name now, and it covers everything from children's books to erotica to horror to urban fantasy to political thriller.
Wait a second. Did you say erotica?
Yes, I did, and it's
brother,
under a
dude. That just disturbs me in so many.
Hey, okay, it was done as a dare. All right.
I was about to say Hector and Betty.
Woo!
A little bit more than we should.
Genosco erotica.
It's done under a pen name. My graphics guy. His name is Massimo Zini, but he goes by Jeffrey Kosh. Awesome graphic artist. He's done like the grand majority of my covers, and I most of my success I think is due to him. But we used to sit up because at the time he lived in Italy, and so the hours were odd, and I was a night owl. I'd stay up till the crack of dawn and then go to bed. We'd stay up and talk and about everything. And I'd make off the wall jokes, and I was a submariner in the Navy, so my humor is cut from a completely different cloth than most people's. And he urged me for a couple of years to try my hand at erotica, especially humorous erotica. Well, I couldn't figure joking online was one thing, trying to put it in a book was another. So my wife's best friend at the time, who was a massive flirt, nothing wrong with that. She's a wonderful lady. She asked if she could be the main character, and she gave me some ideas for stories, and I went with it. And I gave her a couple printed copies, and she was working at the time as a taxi driver for the Amish. We have an Amish community south of us, and she sold I don't know how many copies of this to them. Amish of all people. And yeah, they liked it, but I think they're the only ones that have read it. But
You've got to make me a promise if you do another one.
no, I'm not. I'm not.
You've got to put Alan Gamboa in it as a character.
Alan would have to be. He would have to be like. Well, I'm not gonna say it. This is a family show. I'm not gonna say it. But if I ever did revisit,
as long as he makes it further in that book than he did in the first one.
Mm-hmm. Hey, he made it to the end of the first one of the Janoskwa. He just had to stand by and watch his team get smashed.
But this time he'd have to stand by and watch his team get smashed in a different way.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, I guess I shouldn't have advertised that because it's not under my name. If anybody tried to find it, they'd have a hard time. But yeah.
Can I ask, is it with humans? It's human erotica?
Yes. It's nothing supernatural. It's nothing. Yes, it's all human. Although, and I asked my publisher if she wanted it, and she said, "Is it supernatural?" And I said, "No." She said, "Then I'm not interested." I can go in and make some edits, just make some of the characters a vampire. Or, no.
I'm sorry. I kind of derailed us right out the gate.
Hey, that's all right. I started it.
Unprepared for you saying you wrote it wrong.
He's opened the door. You just walked through.
I did. I set it out there for you. You're the one that tripped on it. So.
Oh, dear God.
And I got a dad jokes book. So it's kind of the full circle, a little bit of everything.
Oh, okay. It's gonna be top that.
He goes,
Let me see if I can do this. I don't know if I can do this.
Thank you, Pagan.
I was trying to get. There it is. I think that was one of the covers. I didn't realize it was right over my shoulder. Oops.
How long ago was that?
Oh gosh. I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, I guess. I'd have to look. I honestly do not know. Yeah, I don't. Not off the top of my head, I don't know.
I've walked into some read some supernatural ones with like Bigfoot erotica accidentally. And I was like,
that's a whole subgenre, a very disturbing subgenre.
I know. I was like, I can't believe it's so popular, but each to their own, I guess. Yeah.
The one that threw me is
movies about it too. I mean, not like
Well, the one that threw me is the dinosaur erotica.
What?
Dinosaur.
He's not kidding.
No, I'm not kidding. It's a real thing. And I'm sitting here wondering, a T-Rex, as big as that thing is, it split somebody in half, but
how is it physically possible?
I don't know.
Damn you, Keith.
That'll teach you to bring moonshine to a coffee club.
Damn right.
Wow.
I feel like Eddie Murphy on Shrek. Woo! I can't breathe.
I thought Bigfoot erotica was bad, but dinosaur? That's the Glad I didn't know that. Now I do.
Now you do.
See, now that's a thing you know.
Yeah, check her search history after this is over.
You wouldn't want to.
We're all writers. Our search history is going to be disturbing anyway.
Oh my God, yes.
I always worry about that if I'd ever get busted because I'm always looking up weapons. I'm looking up if I blow this up, what would happen? And I'm like, I'm just waiting to get busted.
I've done everything from email directors of a wolf sanctuary to study wolf behavior to contacting the body farm down in Texas to find out about decomposition rates.
Yep.
That's hilarious. Yeah, it'd be interesting our searches.
I tell you, when I wrote Monster Squad, I wanted it to be like I had actually been there. And there was a lot of places I had been, but there was a base in Italy that I was trying to give a description. I didn't want to do like Well, my brain just turned off. Rainbow Six.
Tom Clancy?
Thank you. Tom Clancy could spend 11 pages describing a rock on a hill in the middle of somewhere. And I didn't want to do that. And so what I went to Google Street View and saw what it looked like when you're stepping out of such and such building, what was on the horizon, what buildings was surrounding it. And I don't know why I did it, but I actually had a guy email me, probably 3 years after that book was published. And he's like, when were you stationed here? I said, I wasn't. He said, well, I've been here for this long. How did you know? I said, Google Street View, brother.
I use a lot of Google Street View. I really do. Unless it's a place I can physically go to.
Right.
But you know what? That's great. But I like what you said last time you was on, Heath, when you're like, I don't know, in the Catskill Mountains, I don't know if there's a cave like this, but there is in mine. And
there is a certain amount of creative license that has to be taken in the process.
Yeah. And like it again in Monster Squad, the main bad guy, you think he's a good guy, but he ends up being a bad guy. He lives on an island in the Gulf of Mexico. That they're like, there are no islands out there. Really? What's Padre? Well, that's different. Well, I'm just saying, this is my world, damn it. I can if I want an island in the sky, there's an island in the sky. I'm creating this world.
Island in the sky.
But luckily, I did go and I did research on the Catskills. There are cave tunnels and whatnot through there that are natural, and there are quite a few mines too. So I use those to my advantage.
Also the USGS just recently released a study that says the Mammoth Cave system extends from Maine to southern New Mexico.
Yep, I was going to say there's
plenty of room for caves.
There was Indian lore that you could go from the coast to the Rocky Mountains all underground without seeing the light of day.
That's insane.
And I don't doubt that, but I'm claustrophobic, so my fat ass ain't going in there to find out for sure.
I'm with you, Heath.
When I was a young man, when I was a much smaller man, I was a member of a caving group. We would go all over the Midwest here and crawl through caves, but I'm a little too fat and busted up to do that now.
Oh, I couldn't imagine it being stuck in that. That's one of my worst things.
Yep.
When I was a kid, I mean, from the time that I can remember until my teenage years, I used to have a recurring, I want to call it a dream, but it was a nightmare. And it was exactly the same every time. I'm in a cave. There's two very large rocks that are really smooth, like a river rock, but they're huge boulders underground that you can barely slide through. And on the other side is a bigger cavern, and that's what I'm trying to get to, but something happens and it always caves in on me before I get all the way through. And it is so vivid and it is so frightening. And it wasn't until probably 10 or 12 years ago when I started thinking, reading more about past lives and stuff and how it manifests as dreams. And I don't know. I ain't going to say that, I had a past life where I died in a cave, but as often as I'd have that nightmare, and from the earliest of years, before I even knew about caves and that kind of stuff, and I was always dressed, I had cowboy boots on, I had old tan breeches, I had to throw my hat to the side to get through there, and I was an adult, but I had those dreams when I was 2 and 3 years old.
Wow.
So ever since then, because of those nightmares, no, I'll look in a cave. If it's big enough, I can step in and, get a couple feet in and take a look around, but I ain't going in. No, ain't happening.
Well, I'll still go in, but I'm not going to go through any narrow passages. If I can't walk in, I'm not going in.
Well, and I read these articles about people that, they go into this cave and then they dive. They free dive for 100 yards and it pops out over. No, not just no, but hell no.
I did that one time and I do not recommend it.
Not even with scuba gear.
I was a 19-year-old moron when I did it.
Well, when I was a teenager.
How I didn't drown, hand of God must have been involved in that one.
Yep. Well, I was calling bulletproof. So
I made a quick guess on estimated distance from the river that we were near, and it paid off. But if I'd have been wrong, they probably would have been dragging my ass from out of that cave.
Yeah.
If they ever found me.
Well, there was
You get down there and get turned around, you can't tell where you get pitch black.
Yep.
No, thank you.
I read about
the
a guy
current
that
basically
was,
pulled me out.
I read about a rescue diver that was going down to recover another diver's body, and he ended up getting trapped and killed. And a second rescue diver is the one that pulled them both out. And this was months later. And God bless them. I couldn't have done it.
Yeah, it's no, not anymore. You know, when I was, 18, 19 years old and convinced I was invincible, sure. But
Yeah.
these days I'm like, no, probably not going to do that.
Nah.
So I've got a question for the both of you. In fact, all three of you. But we'll start with Luka. Tell us about your writing process.
It's probably not normal to say.
There's nothing normal about this field.
No, I guess like I just finished Red Eyes, so now I'm thinking about. I usually have the next book already in my head, and as I said on this podcast, a month ago, I've got to always write. It's my full-time job, and I go crazy and stir crazy if I don't write. So there's always something happening. My process is really, it's just use my imagination of coming up with scenarios or where I want the characters, if it's a series, to go. And it's mainly due to my insomnia. I just lay in bed trying to, go to sleep for hours. And I've used that to my advantage since I started writing, of working out the scenes in my head. So then, next day I get up and I'll write it. And it may be a chapter or it may be 10. Obviously not in one day. And then I'll think, okay, where's the characters going with this? Sometimes I have the end in my brain. Sometimes it just organically, happens that way. But yeah, some days are good in terms of how much I can write, and others I'll go a few days without it, but I'm still always obviously thinking of scenarios, scenes and things like that. But it's mainly late at night once my partner's gone to sleep. It's quiet, love it. But I spend probably the day editing, going through and refining. But it's the hours from, say, 8 p.m. till about 1 are my best. And I think, I've always just been a night owl, so love doing it that way. And that works. I mean, whatever works. If you can pump out a book in a month, then good on you. If it takes you 6 months, so be it. You just do what works for you and work to that. And, fix it if it's not working.
Heath, same question, brother.
Well, I'm definitely a pantser. More often than not, when I least expect it, I might be sitting at a softball game with my daughters, and I'd see something, and it pops an idea in my head.
Yeah.
If the idea sticks, I'll hold on to it. And I've got a cheat sheet where I put down ideas that come to me that I think, that's got promise. Maybe one day. And there's probably a dozen or two ideas for stories in there. But normally when I write, I have to know two things. I have to know a beginning, a basic idea what the story's about, but I got to have a beginning, and I have to know where it ends. And then whatever happens, it's like life. You're born and you die, and what happens in between is just the biggest surprise to you as it is to the readers. And that's the way it is. The story tells itself. Even when I go back to Monster Squad, because I spent the most time, I think, on it. It's over 1 million words, I'm sure. It took on a life of its own. It's something, I'd write something, it's like, man, why did I put that in there? I'm going to remove it. Somehow the story would find a way to put it back because it was necessary. It's almost like I'm channeling the story, and I'm just typing it because I don't know what's happening until I type it. And it's like, whoa, where did that come from? And I've had people Well, that was a shock. Yeah, it was a shock to you. I'm the one who wrote it. And it was a shock to me. But that's generally how it is. I get an idea. Then I have to have a basic premise, a beginning and an end, and the rest tells itself.
Robbie, what about you, bud?
And for me, it's kind of, I'm the baby of the group as far as writing goes, but hearing Heath and Luka say the same things that I've heard you say since you and I have been friends, and hearing you say it, and like, where did that come from? And you're sitting there thinking, what? I mean, how do you not know where stuff like that comes from? But then when you actually do it and you experience it yourself, and you're like, whoa, he wasn't lying. So I guess I'm kind of like Heath in a way where I have to know the beginning, the end not so much, because I kind of fall on it and let the story go. I have maybe a general idea of how I want the story to end, but not anything really specific. It's not like he has to hit this beat, and this beat for it to end. It's like, I know I want him to be here when he ends, but how that actually plays out, I won't know until I'm actually writing that part of it. So I guess I like to say I'm a little bit more seat in my pants when it comes to that, and maybe that's just because I haven't done it as much as y'all have yet, and I haven't refined that that sit down and figure out everything mentality yet. I just kind of start putting stuff together and slinging it at the wall and seeing what sticks top. But it's worked a little, kind of so far. I guess if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But just and kind of the same thing with Luke. Like, this story, DA. When the first book, I've had that had a version of that story in my head for like 20 years, but I never could. I sat down and started, I don't know how many times, and just never could do it. And DA had always said, it'll happen when it's supposed to happen. And I was laying there one night trying to sleep, and it was like somebody stuck a funnel in my ear and poured the first 3 chapters in my head. It was just like, and I'm like, whoa, where the hell did that come from? And I got up next morning and wrote 3 chapters. What I tell you, DA, like 2.5 hours, I think.
Something like that.
I sent it to you and Doc, and you were like, you wrote all this morning? I'm like, yeah. You're like, dang. So, it's just sometimes you get those, like he said, you're just sitting somewhere for the most unexpected time or things. Those ideas come, and then sometimes you're just like beating your head against the wall. Like, where does this need to go? I can't figure this out.
Oh, yeah. I've had scenes pop into my head that I think, oh, that's awesome. How can I use it? And I might sit on it for 6 months to a year until, if not the story I'm working on, but another one, until I can use that scene. And then it's like, woo-hoo.
I do that with dialogue. I'll come up with a little gem and save it for just the perfect moment, usually a Margolin line. Mara Rods had a question for both of you. It says, for Luka and Heath, do you struggle to break from mainstream ideas when writing about the different cryptids' descriptions, like giving new attributes to a certain one?
Go ahead, Luka. All right, I'll go ahead. A little, like in Red Eyes, and I mean, we all would generally know the characteristics and traits of Sasquatch, right? Some of them would be violent, some not so much. Some say they're telepathic. Some say, I always lose words in my head, infrasound, and all that sort of thing, but also the physical. As you've listened to how many encounters, people say they look different, depending on the location sometimes. But I know, and you, DA and Robbie may agree with me, when it comes to law enforcement and you've got witnesses, there can be 2 witnesses that see exactly the same thing happen right in front of them, and they'll give you a different description.
Yep.
So
100%.
Yeah. So I would imagine that would happen if 2 people saw a Sasquatch, and they would have different interpretations and would describe it completely different, or just, a few things different. But yeah, in Red Eyes, I before that, I'd kept it pretty much standard, what everyone would know. And Red Eyes, I just added in, and it came to me afterwards. I'd written the chapter, and then I went back, and that idea just popped in my head, and I said, all right, what about if the Sasquatch suddenly sends Nicole Beretti, the character, images in her head that sort of explains why he is how he is. And it was just brief, very brief. I didn't want to get it too far in and, have them having a conversation in their head or anything. And I was only thinking of it last night. I wonder how readers took that, because it was something different that I went down. And it was not major, but it was different that I haven't gone into before. But I haven't heard anything good or bad about it. So I thought, okay, that obviously it was fine. I'm sure, there will be someone that will have issue with something. There always is. You'll always get that one. But it wasn't too far out there. But I just write what I know without it being too crazy, that I wouldn't even believe that, that sort of thing would happen. But I mean, as you said, Heath, it's our world. So if we write that the Sasquatch starts dancing in the middle of they're fighting, well, then so be it. That Sasquatch loves dancing. It's our world. And you can write, your imagination will write whatever you write. And if it works within the story, it works. And if, 10 readers love it, so be it. If one doesn't like it, it's not their book.
You can't please everyone.
Yep.
Exactly. That's a fact.
That's kind of the approach you took, Heath, is that transfer of how they communicated with each other.
Yeah,
and,
but with mine, I just did it with Hector having almost like a psychic connection with his girlfriend, the Sasquatch that he buddied up with. Everybody teased him about being, and it's one of those times when the story told itself, and I didn't fight it. I was like, a psychic connection. When he touched her, or touched any of them, actually, whatever they were, that the Sierra sounds, it sounds like a language. And to me, it sounds like they're speaking on the inhale and not the exhale. So that's how I wrote my Sasquatch communicating with each other. And of course, humans don't understand, but whenever Hector held Betty's hand or touched her arm, it's like she could transfer images. He knew what she was saying, even though he didn't understand the words. And it was the same way when they confronted the military and Red was speaking. He was telling, if you have to have blood, take mine. If you need a pound of flesh, I let my people go. Let my tribe live. And I haven't gotten any feedback from anybody negatively on that.
That was a great scene. I loved how you wrote that scene.
Thank you.
Because it's one of those, you have no clue which way this is going to go when all this comes out, and it's like, whoa.
Those first two books, there was a lot of blood and gore, and I tried to think of the most horrific ways to kill people. And
I love thinking those things up.
Yeah, well, sometimes, I've had people say, dude, tone it down a bit. That is beyond gory. Well, Vlad the Impaler started it, and if it's good enough for a human, it's good enough for a Squatch. But the third book, by the time it rolled around, and a lot of people are like, well, why the change? Dude, did you not notice at the end of book 2, David Ford's got the rifle up. He's got the crosshair right between Red's eyes. And in book 3, Red's missing an eye. He was shot in the head. And a lot of people that suffer head trauma, whether, frontal lobotomy or it changes their personality. Violent people become very laid back, very nonviolent, very peaceful. And that's what I was trying, without saying it. And I think I did allude to it in a couple of scenes, but that's what made the change. And my editor was like, well, she was asking me all these questions. And I told her, she said, well, I don't like that. I'm sorry. That's the way the story told itself. Well, that's not. And I said, look, just edit. All right. We're not rewriting the book. Just edit. And she kind of, okay, but I don't like it. And I said, well, that's fine. I'm not pushing that narrative, but I put enough seeds out there for people to be able to take 1 and 1 and equal 2. I thought it worked. And I think the people who really read it rather than just, rip through it because they want the action and stuff, I think they picked up on it.
But that can be sorry, when you watch movies. Like my favorite movies or even ones that I just enjoy, you can watch it twice, 3 times, and you pick up things that you didn't pick up in the first time.
Yep.
Right? So even if your readers read it and didn't pick it up the first time, they're coming back to your book because, well, they're bloody good. So
if I ever come out with the next one, I'm sure a lot of readers are going to go back and reread to catch up. And that's when, like you say, the second or third time through, they pick up on those little things.
Yep. Absolutely.
I would too. Rather have a bottle in front of me than a frontal lobotomy. Amen.
Yeah, that's an old Martin Mull joke from the 70s. Yeah. I'd rather have a full bottle in front of me than a full frontal lobotomy.
Yep.
You know lobotomy, I know lobotomy you.
Yeah.
And I were talking about that last night, and that's what I told him. I said, I know because DA's good about leaving you on a cliffhanger. But I told him, I said, the cliffhanger that Heath left on, I'm just, it's like nothing but your toenails are hanging on to the edge of the cliff. I mean, I was like,
well, I'm gonna spoiler alert for the next one. The battle's over. At the end of the book 4, when book 5 opens, the sun is rising. The Sasquatch are headed for the hills. There is no more action after that. They're all licking their wounds and trying to get the hell out of Dodge. Like I've had people beg me, please tell me what happens next. And I said, look, calm down. Nothing. The battle was over. And then it's little stuff like how are we gonna bury Betty? How are we gonna do this? And anyway, so there's the spoiler alert for anybody that was just chomping at the bit for book 5, because I've got one whole chapter written since the last time I was on your show, DA. That's how slow I got burned out, man. I got burned out bad.
Hey man, sometimes it just flows, and sometimes it's like pulling teeth.
Yep, and that with Caldera, my viral zombie book, after book 4 or 5, I don't remember. Book 5. It was after book 5. Every word was like pulling teeth, and I struggled with everywhere the story went. Every subplot, the whole thing. It was just a huge struggle. And I really thought, man, this is going to bomb. People are going to hate that. No, they were the best received, but the harder it was to write, the more people loved it. So if that's any indication, then they're going to absolutely adore book 5, because this has been every bit as hard. And I was never so happy as to write the ending of book 12 on Caldera, because I could finally step away from that world and those characters. And I had people beg me, hey, there's so much more you could do. Yeah, I could. I'd rather take a bullet to the head than have to go back to there.
Some writing just puts you in a bad frame of mind. Like at the end of my Ragnarok series, when the inevitable happened and Wiley dies. So, spoiler alert for those of you who haven't read the series. When I finished writing that scene, which I knew from the first sentence of the first book that is how that series was going to end.
Yeah.
But even then, after 10 books invested in that character, I walked away from the keyboard for 3 days. I couldn't do it. I went outside with a cooler full of beer and sat in the backyard and drank beer and got my nerves back in order, because that scene wrung me out emotionally.
I took the bad guy from Caldera. He came in book 5, I guess. But Caldera was, book 3. Caldera was one of those we took. It was really big originally. It was one standalone story. And Tracy Tufo is the one that said, hey, why don't we take this, split it in 2, write 2 more, and we'll release all 4 of them at once. Because some other writer had released the first 4 or 5 books of a series all at one time and just climbed the charts at Amazon. He had like number 1 forever. So we tried it, and it worked. I mean, as far as sales went, it really worked. I got a lot of new readers that way. But I took the bad guy, and over time, at the very end of book 12, when he finally dies, people are like, oh my God, I can't believe you had me crying for Simon of all people. And I'm like, yeah, well, people can be redeemed. And we don't know someone else's struggles until we look at the world through their eyes. And even my wife, she beta reads everything before it even goes to the editor. She handed me it back, and she hates to cry. She hates for anybody to see her cry. She handed it back to me. She's like, next time, warn me. And I said, what? The bad guy died? Yeah, but he didn't have to. He shouldn't have. He was redeemed. And I'm like, okay, if you say so. But that was one I had to step away from too.
So, Luka, we'll start this one with you, and we'll go all the way around. I'll have everybody answer this one, even Robbie. What's the hardest scene you've written? That took the most toll.
Toll in an emotional way?
Yeah. Because we get invested in our writing. I mean, we have to. Because if we're not invested, the readers won't be.
I guess, my memory's pretty bad, but but I guess because Red Eyes I just finished Red Eyes and released it. It was showing, and for those that haven't read it, it's about, Nicole Beretti. She's a special agent, and her parents were killed when she was younger. Spoiler alert, she finds out, and she's 34 now, she finds out that instead of it was just a simple car accident, a Sasquatch was involved in it that was obsessed with her as a child. So I wanted, when I finished the book prior to that, in that series, I thought I want to write it also from the Sasquatch's point of view. Why did he do what he did? And obviously, we're limited in what we know about Sasquatch in their heads. But it was important that, I'm not sort of giving him human traits or anything, but there's a reason for why, 99% of the time, why people are the way they are, whether they're good, bad, or indifferent. And I think the final scene with the showdown between Beretti and Red Eyes was probably the hardest, because in one way I didn't want to kill him off, and another, it's sort of, that's the way the story has to sort of end, but I felt sorry for him, and the reviews I've got are, they cried, and I'm not an emotional person, and I was like, oh my gosh, I made someone cry from that. Obviously, even though I'm not an emotional person and my emotions are there, but they're deep down, obviously I can write better about emotional things than I can expressing them, to loved ones or whatever. So I thought, I really nailed that one, but I was still sad that, the story had to end the way it did, even though I obviously controlled it. So I would say, that one.
Heath, what about you, dude?
I was sitting here thinking the whole time she was talking, I was trying to think, is there any one character I killed off that really... I had to take a step back when I killed off Simon in Caldera. But for a different reason. It wasn't because I was so emotionally invested. It was because I wasn't sure. Should I kill him off or should he live? I killed off Padre and Maria in Monster Squad, and I had a lot of people give me a lot of blowback on that. It didn't bother me. I felt that their characters had to go. When I killed off Betty and Red in Janoskwa, I knew a lot of people were going to be upset about that, but that's what the story needed to be told. None of them really, I guess because I felt like the story, it had to be there for the story, the way it was going to develop. It had to happen. So it didn't affect me like that. The only one that I really, like I said, Simon, I was just questioning, did he have to die? That's what the story, how it came out, but did he really have to? And in the end, yeah, he did. but I don't think I've had any where the characters, I was so attached to one to where it hit me emotionally. I'll put it that way.
Robbie, what about you, dude?
Sorry, before we
Go ahead.
move on, can
Yeah,
I
go
just ask, and I know people, if you killed off Grey Eagle, it's been said before, DA, you'd probably have
People
a riot.
riot.
Right? Do you not kill off, like when you're thinking of, should I kill him off? Does that work with the story? This is for all of you. Does what the reader is going to think, is that got, how much weight has that got?
None.
My main consideration is it important for the story? The book I just released, Lakeview Man, Dead of Winter, I killed the main character, and there have been people already talking about it in the chat. Some people said it made them cry, but I cannot tell you the number of messages, emails, and texts I've received over that particular character's death.
Mm-hmm.
She was a popular character, and there's a lot of people like, why? Why did you do that? But if you go back and read that book again, there is a key scene that pays that off. That is why that scene was inevitable. But I've caught flack over killing characters. In fact, for a while they were calling me Dr. Death, which I thought was pretty funny. But I do factor in how people are going to react, but it's generally after I've already written the scene.
What about you, Robbie?
Honestly, the scene in the first book where the alpha Bigfoot fights the werewolf, and the werewolf was just kind of testing its power, and the way I wrote it was the alpha Bigfoot knew that this was an evil creature that did not belong. It was not part of the natural order, and I kind of wrote it that he knew he couldn't. He gave it everything he had, and knew that and it just kind of regenerated and kind of looked at him. So I wrote it as the alpha knew that he couldn't beat this thing, but he was gonna stand in front of it, and he was gonna give it everything he had to do. And so that was kind of an emotional thing, and I didn't know how people react to it, but one of my best friends over here, he wrote it, and he read it, and he was like, he said, "I'm gonna tell you, dude," he said, "I kind of teared up in that fight scene with the alpha and the werewolf." He said, "I hate that you had to kill the alpha like that." And I'm like, had to show that. And he was like, so I was kind of like, okay, that then it conveyed what I wanted it to convey, that he knew he was not gonna come out on top, but yet it was that Captain America versus Thanos moment where Cap knew he couldn't stop Thanos, but he was going to do what he had to do anyway to try, and he's going to hold that hand back as hard as he could. So that was kind of like the inspiration I took writing that scene.
As a kid, I read everything I could get my hands on, from Louis L'Amour to J.R.R. Tolkien. I mean, I read everything. And we used to be a big Marvel Comics fan, and I remember reading an interview with Jim Starlin, who was a fantastic comic book writer, just an awesome writer. And they asked him, what's your secret? And he said, every great story begins with a death. And I've taken that to heart over the years.
Yeah.
You got to kill somebody to get somebody's attention.
That is true. That is true.
Yep.
I don't know who I'd kill off. Well, but and you guys have answered. Just how much? Well, here's a question actually. When you get the reviews, good, bad, or whatever, how much influence does that have on you? Even if it's just good, but if it's bad, I think when it comes to like getting a poor review, I think that,
which is inevitable. It's going to happen.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's going to be like I don't mind getting them if they're constructive and they can help me better my writing for the next time.
Right.
The ones that are just silly. Oh, I don't like when Bigfoot gets hurt. And it's like, what did you expect from the blurb was going to be happen? You know, they thought that it was going to be a warm, fuzzy children's book. Clearly, you read and you went in, and that's what happens. But if they give me constructive criticism, absolutely, don't mind the negative reviews. But if you had more, say, and I guess this is for Heath because you mentioned that it doesn't have any significance on if you're writing the scene and whether you would kill someone or not. If there's, say, you got 10 reviews and 8 of them said, hey, I don't think you should have done that, or it was great up until, would that change your mind for the next book or whichever?
For me, you can't bring them back alive. That's the thing. However, when I first started, Mark Tufo gave me the best piece of advice. He said, don't read the reviews. Count them, don't read them. They'll just suck your soul out, and that's all they're good for. And I did anyway. I'd read them, and all the ones that were, oh, that's a great book. Of course, your head gets big, and you're like, yay, I did a good job. And then some asswipe has got to come in and say something. I think my favorite 1-star review, I kid you not, and I need to go in and find it and like take a screenshot of it.
Frame it as a poster.
Yeah, I didn't actually read this book, but wait a minute. I didn't actually read this book, but what the hell? And I actually wrote down, hey, can you take this down? And they, honest to God, everybody is entitled to their opinion. They said they didn't read the damn book. Doesn't matter. They're entitled to their opinion. Okay, I see how it is. You're okay. Now, back to the actual constructive. Yes, I've taken those to heart. There was one where a lady, Monster Squad. I worked with some guys in the military that their mouths, they were special forces. Their mouths were just like you see in the movies. They use the F word like an Oxford comma. Okay. Oh, yeah. And when I first started it, I based each character off people I knew. Change the names, but give them the same characteristics. It's easy to give each character their own voice if they're based off of a real person that you know.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I had quite a few people. Oh, the language is so abrasive. The language is so coarse. The language is so rude. I actually had one asshole. I was a lieutenant colonel in the special forces, and I can guarantee you that our men do not talk like that. You're full of shit, pal. Yeah. Seriously, have you watched Lone Survivor? And that's
hang out with a group of cops when there's nobody around.
No shit. Oh yeah, no shit.
When I first wrote the first Ragnarok books, my wife's like, "Can you tone the language down?" I'm like, "Have you seriously not listened to us? I have never been flipped off in my life more than by other cops."
Well, I did go through and I tried to clean it up. My intention was maybe it could also be for young adult. No, you can only clean up so much. And I made a blog post about it years ago, The Power of a Clean Mouth. You can change a lot, but when something bad happens and they, scream out the F-bomb, putting darn it just doesn't quite cut the mustard, especially when it's somebody, who was a Army Ranger or Navy SEAL or something before he was recruited into the Monster Squad. So yeah, no, they're not gonna. You can only do so much. And I finally, when it came to something like that, other people who had constructive criticism, I did try to take it to heart, and I tried to include it in my future works. That's why I'd like to think that over the last 13 years and over the last 50 books, that I have improved somewhat as a writer. I know structurally and grammatically I have, but as a storyteller, I would like to think that I have as well. But then there's some that, there was one asshat that made a comment about wanting to use FN weapons. Why would we use French weapons? Okay, it's not French. They may speak French, in Austria, but it's not French weaponry. And who do you think makes the grand majority of the freaking machine guns for the U.S. military. Fabrique Nationale, FN. So when I had my guys using the 5.7 because it's armor piercing and monsters have thick skin, they got all kinds of butt hurt. Why would you use a souped up 22? No, it's not. And rather than argue with them, I just thought let them have their 15 minutes of fame in the reviews and leave it be, because you're not going to change their mind, and all you're going to do is alienate some of your other readers who they don't want to see the author get into a monkey shit fight with some idiot in the reviews. So I just let it be, let it go, let them have their day.
I find, like, I'll go through, if I'm bored, I'll have a look at my reviews, and then I'll go to other books' reviews.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the reviews, and I think as a reader, because obviously I'm going to read the book, that's why I'm looking at the reviews, the bad ones just more often than not make me want to read the book, because, as you say, asshat or asshat, they're just being absolutely ridiculous, and they've had a bad day, or they're jealous because they want to write a book and can't. Whatever the reason for being an ass, they've just written it. Like I remember on my first book, I had one where he complained that what I made up where it was. Like, it was Kansas, Missouri, but where he lived in the town, like a small town, was made up. And the complaint was there is no town in Missouri named that. And I'm like, this is fantasy, buddy. This is my world.
Right.
And because, I don't live in Missouri, and there's only so much research I could do, and it was my first book, I wanted to make up the town name. And then I could make the town whatever I wanted and not worry about that it wasn't 100% correct, or it didn't have the right landscape that I had in my head. But some of them they crack me up with their nastiness.
And what gets me is sometimes it's other writers. It's like, it's like they got a mindset where I have to slam everybody else's work because they can only read mine. Really? How many readers do you know of only reads one book in their life and that's it?
Exactly. I say that all the time. I don't ever see other writers as my competition. In fact, encouraging people to read more is a win for all of us.
Well, I got really, really lucky early in the game. I got in tight with Mark Tufo, and him or his wife one came up with the idea, hey, let's build our own little club here. So we got John O'Brien, Sean Kesser, trying to think. Todd Brown was in it, but he passed away. Really nice guy. And then my brain turned off. I can see his face clear as day. He narrated a couple of my... Anyway, there was a group of us that got together, and we put an ad in the back of in the back of all of our books. You know, other readers have enjoyed, and that's got pictures of their stuff. And whenever somebody has something new come out, we announce it. You've probably seen me announce, hey, Sean Chester's got a new Audible out, or John O'Brien's got a new book out in this series. It's just, we toot each other's horn to try to drum up business. And it has worked, because I was unheard of. I don't think I'd been in the game a year when I fell in with these guys, and they were pretty established indies that had a huge fan base, and it helped me immensely. So I learned from the get-go, tooting someone else's horn to help them does you more good than trying to cut them down. Anybody.
I agree.
The only writer that I really will cut down in public, Stephen King. I'm sorry. The guy can think up great ideas, but as a writer, oh my God, did he pass 6th grade? Because the only I'm gonna bust. People are they're gonna send me hate mail. The only thing he's written that I actually enjoyed reading was the Gunslinger series. Everything else, the idea was great. The premise, it was awesome. The delivery fell flat. You got to build it up, and then No. But I know there was a time when he had some issues with cocaine and stuff, or at least that's what I read. And maybe that had, but there's people that anything that Stephen King writes, well, they got to have it, you know. And says the guy who's got what 600 reviews on his best day versus the busting on the guy that's got 20 movies to his name. So I'm just saying, as a writer, I think he could have done a lot better.
I've had that opinion a few times. Very similar. Yeah. Interesting.
Well, and it's like to build on what you said, Heath. I mean, I've read every book that DA's written. I've read most of I've read all your Genosco series that you've got. I've read 2 or 3 of Luka's books, and I love all of them. I can't say that I could only read DA's or I could only read Luke, because.
And I wouldn't want you to. I want people.
What I'm saying is, if you like that kind of stuff, you can't just. I can't say that I'm only going to read DA's because you're just constantly waiting for stuff to come out, and you're like, you read everybody else's stuff and you get that fix. I mean, because
Eric Shellman, I knew the name would come to me. Shellman, he's a heck of a writer. He was the other guy in our group, and I can't believe that I couldn't think of his name. I'm great with faces. I'm horrible with names. Eric sent me one of his called The Camera. If you guys get a chance, you ought to look at it. A really good story.
Yeah, but that's we were on with Brett the other night, and we were talking about, I had our Antarctica series, and I said, Brett, you need to go read the Last Hunter series, because it pretty much talks about it's the entire story of what we were talking about. And he sent me a message the other day. Thanks for sending me that, man. I've started reading it. It's amazing. Yep. It's just it falls right in line with what we were saying. I mean, not that guy will ever know that I turned Brett onto that, but what did that hurt me?
It doesn't. It only helps you. Especially when you do it publicly. That's why when people ask me, can you promote this? Yes, most definitely, especially the guys in our group. I mean, all we're really doing is saying, hey, he's got a new one out. You really ought to read it. Mark Tupou, I think he's like 25 or 28 books into his zombie series, Zombie Fallout. And if you're into zombies, especially, that Mark's got such an his sense of humor is one that, especially if you're military, you're going to appreciate, or ex-law enforcement, you're going to appreciate his sense of humor. There's a lot of spouses out there, a lot of wives that are like, if they read it, they're not going to like it. But it's all in jest. It's all for humor. Hell of a writer, though.
I find, by like going on from that, you're keeping people in the genre as well.
Yeah.
Right? It's only going to benefit you. And with the surge of, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but the surge of just AI books in amongst Sasquatch and I guess werewolf or anything.
It's like all that. Genres. It's hitting all genres.
Absolutely. So if I don't want to just recommend every book, right? Because unless I know that, hey, the person wrote it themselves or whatever and put time into it. But if I'm promoting, say, Robbie's or DA's or yours, Heath, well, I know it's going to be a good book even if I haven't read it.
Right.
I'm not just promoting everyone that, and they've got...
But when you know the writer and you know their style especially, it's easy to say, oh, hey, so-and-so's got a new one out. Let's go check it out.
Right.
If you've read their other stuff.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Because just like me, I don't stick with one writer, and it'd be extremely arrogant and ignorant to think that if I promoted Robbie's book, well, that's sending them away from me. They'll never come back to me. No, they've got cryptids in their head. So, and then they'll move on, and then they'll read one from DA or whatever. If I can keep them in that cryptid sort of fantasy area, they're going to go looking for the next one because it's exactly what I do as a reader.
Well, and I've had readers come up, that had read my earlier horror stuff, right? And they're like, "Well, I got a political thriller out," and they're like, "Yeah, I don't read that, but I've read your horror. I liked it. I'm gonna check it out." And then they're like, "Oh my God, I like this," and then I can turn them on to other writers that are in that genre. That I don't know if having multiple genres helps or hurts. Jeffrey Kosh, my graphics guy, he says that it shows that I'm a well-rounded writer. I think that's his way of saying I'm fat. But steering people that's in the same genre, it's very easy to do. But when you try to step into another genre, you sometimes lose your base readers.
Are you using a different pen name for that?
No, the only one I used a pen name for was erotica. Because I had spent 8 or 9 years, and what's sad is because Kathy wanted me to use her as the main character, I'm trying to write these from a woman's point of view, and for some reason it's like romance novels and erotica. If you're a guy but you're writing it from a woman's point of view, there's readers out there that no matter how good or bad that is a no-no. That is a huge no-no. You're a man. You can't write from a woman's point of view. Well, how dare you assume my gender?
They're brutal. Readers, yeah.
Some are very brutal.
Well, I had someone, because I've written stories that have Native American characters. Yeah. And I won't say the name of the person. They contacted me through my author page and told me I didn't have the right to write characters of Native American origin. And William Nighthawk, who's a good buddy of mine, he's a Lakota shaman, just an absolute awesome dude, another podcaster. He told me, he said, "Do people like your books?" I'm like, "Yeah." He said, "Well, I like your books, and if they want to bitch about them, send them to me."
Yeah, well, it's not the same, but Larry Correa, I don't know if you guys know him. I think he's an attorney. He wrote Monster Hunters International.
I know his work. I don't know him personally.
Yeah,
all those books.
He had written Monster Hunters International before I came out with Monster Squad. Here I was thinking I had an original story idea. And then I had all these reviewers come in and say I was just ripping him off, copying him, not even a good copy because this character is not that character and this character. And I'm like, who? And my wife said, and she had found him and he's well established. And I didn't want to read his stuff because I didn't want to accidentally emulate, copy, or lean on his ideas. And eventually somebody was ripping into me, and I guess one of the other people on Facebook knew Larry, and they're like, "Hey, come squash this." And Larry stepped in and was like, "Knock it off. Leave him alone. I've read his stuff. It's not the same. He's a hell of a writer. Quit busting his balls." And I'm like, "Thank you." And we kind of became friends there for, I don't know, a few months. We were talking back and forth on Facebook, and he was like, "Don't be afraid. If you want to read it, I'll send it to you." And I'm like, "No, my wife's already got it on a Kindle. I'm going to it." And he is a hell of a writer. And he's very, I'm going to say he probably alienates half of his readership because of his political views. And the guys that are strong enough in that they don't care, I have to respect, regardless of which side they fall on. And I don't know how I got on that subject. I'm sorry. Oh, because there's people that are just going to bitch because they've got nothing better to do.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's a fact.
But you're right. He's a very good writer. I didn't didn't read the memoirs part of the Monster Hunter International. I stopped once that actual series stopped. But I love that series. That was a great. Me and DA talked about that several times. That was just to have that idea of just everything's out there, and there's just
Yep.
Whatever you want to call it, some kind of mandate from the government that if you kill one of these things, you get X number of dollars from the U.S. government.
Yeah.
That's just an insane idea.
It is, but it's an original idea. But I think it kind of falls back on the days when coyotes were really a threat, and that you kill a coyote. I think it was the left ear. You bring in a left ear, and they paid you a bounty.
Yep.
And I think that's kind of where that idea comes from. Whereas mine was just recruit, special forces that are recruited into a team that when there's any kind of report of something that goes bump in the night, they go out and clean their clock, and then they got a cleanup crew that comes out and makes it all disappear, sweeps it under the rug. Kind of similar, but not the same.
Well, I mean, you can really look at just about most 85% of books have that kind of same premise.
Yeah.
Something happens, there's a crew that takes care of it, then there's another crew that comes and does it, sweeps under the rug, blah, 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 blah. Everything's taken.
Yep.
I mean, I doubt that very seriously that Larry was the first one that came up with something like that.
No, but the way he delivered it was quite original.
Yeah, I agree with that. But that premise itself, I think, is something that's been around a lot longer than probably any of us right here have been around.
Yeah.
Well, there's always going to be tropes in writing. Cliches exist for a reason. And we're all guilty of doing it. Whether you aim to or not. I had a literature class in college, and they said there's really only like 7 basic plot lines for stories.
Yep.
And everything else is just characterization and derivative of those 7 basic plot lines. And when you really boil it down, there's really only one: good versus evil.
That's what my English teacher used to say.
And it's all about how you put the characters together and how the story flows. The originality comes from the concepts that you put in the story and the types of characters you build, and the amount of personality you put into these characters.
Well, look at when zombies was the rage. AMC came out with The Walking Dead, but zombies for a decade or more had been building up to where the graphic novels, the comic books, all these different writers come up with different stories. And it's all, it's not that, it's a zombie story. It's a story of the survivors. Yeah. It really is. Whether it's their interactions with each other or their interactions with other survival groups, it's whether it's just wash my mouth. I can't do a thing with it. Whether it's post-apocalyptic or it's zombies or something else that falls in that same category, I guess, where you've got a group of survivors that you don't know if you can trust that person that you meet on the road. And
I did I made that same point in my Ragnarok books. The zombies were bad, but the biggest threats were from other survivors.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I think in the grand scheme of things, humans have always been the biggest monster. So
that's the main theme in The Last of Us. I mean, the zombies are kind of like,
an afterthought.
Yeah, they're an afterthought. I mean, it's the other survivors that they really have to worry about. The people who can think and set up traps, and So I mean, that's like you said, that's those tropes and things. It's good versus evil.
Yep.
As I said, being somewhat newbie, wanted to ask you guys if you tried it, whether it's a good idea or not. But I found an interesting response to it. So the last Forest of the Sasquatch book I did, it was it was more about having fun with this one than being a deep meaning sort of story, because it's set in Superior National Forest, and basically the Sasquatch, it was book 3, so there's premise to it all, but they come out and they sort of take over the east side of Duluth, right? It's just a lot of gore and smashing things and smashing people, and they attack people at a Sasquatch conference, and I thought, that'd be hilarious. You don't go to Sasquatch conference to actually see a Sasquatch, but it was just to have a bit of fun with it. And beforehand I thought, okay, I'll put it out there that I'll if anyone's interested, and I didn't know if anyone would be, if they wanted to be a character in the book, and I would just use basic, like their name, their basic age, and if they were married, they were single, or where they lived. That's sort of just the basic stuff. And I got about, I don't know, 8 or 9 people wanting to do it. So I wrote them in, and I didn't realize it would be harder to write when I just not knew the people well, but it was like, I don't really want to kill them off. And it was sort of that sort of thing. It was harder when I knew the people, other than, when I've written characters after my family or friends and things like that. I just found it a little bit more difficult writing about them. But after the book was done, so say I had 9 readers that the characters were based on, I had 8 of them love it and said, thank you for the opportunity to see my name in print, and I got to kick a Sasquatch's ass and things like that. And 1 wasn't very happy at all, because even though he was not, I guess, written about the most, but pretty close to it. He had like 4 chapters of his own, and he was extremely disappointed that I didn't use all the ideas he'd ever come up with and sent me, and it was quite a lot of emails.
When he's telling to write his own book.
Yeah, that's what I said.
I've said that.
That's what
times.
I said. Oh yeah, and he was just like, oh well, you didn't use this and you didn't use that, and I said, I never ever said I would write the book based on you solely. It was just to have some fun with the readers and say thank you. You know, put me in somewhere in there for 2 seconds, and others, because it was worked with the story, they were main characters. It wasn't I choose you because I like you more and therefore you get more, time in the book. But he had significant time. But because he'd sent me emails for the last couple of months talking about weapons and things like that, he thought that I would have included everything he's ever talked about, even though I use quite a few things, mines and things like that, blowing them up, and went out of my sort of, not safe zone, but sort of, with using his ideas. But yeah, he wasn't very happy with that, and so that was the last time I talked to him. I just said, everyone else has just been grateful to see their name in print, and it was just a bit of fun. It didn't have to be so serious about, not that I ever took all of your, suggestions. So it was probably the last time I'll do that or choose better next time. But I was just wondering if you guys have ever done that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've done it a couple times. When I did Whispers, I needed a huge body count. And trying to come up with names that sound like real people, it's a lot harder than it seems like. Not everybody can be like, Rock Grindstone or, something stupid that sounds tough, like Beef Jerky. No. And so I put out a call. Hey, would you like to see your name in print? And I was inundated with people saying, yes, kill me off. But I let them know, look, I'll use your name. It may or may not be your physical description, may or may not be who you are. I just need a name. And, there's some that they were just found dead and the name was used. Those were mostly my kids. But my thing is, if I, like when I did Janoskwa, the first book, 90% of the people in there were folks that allowed me to use their names. And my way of saying thank you is whenever it's published, I mail them a physical copy. They've got a Dead Tree version that's got their name in it, and I'll autograph it and tell them, thanks for letting me use you. When I did it for Whispers, it was a vengeful ghost story. And I had friends on Facebook, and I told them, I'll send you well, I didn't realize at the time, one was in Australia, one was in England, 2 were in Canada. You know what it cost to mail a freaking book to England? It was like $50.
That's my issue. That's my issue. I can't send them to the States.
Yeah. Well, and like, I had one in Australia. I had one in Queensland that I had, and I'm mailing books all over. I spent more in postage for like 6 people than I made off the book in 8 years. But that, that was, well, when I went back and did it the second time, I told him, I said, look, if you're in the States and I can get, I'll send you a physical copy. If you're out of the country, I probably won't use you because it's just too expensive to mail a book. And at the time, I had a lady that lived in England. She goes by Vic Hissy Pants now because it's a cat name or something. Anyway, I wanted to, at the time, I wanted to send her one of everything I had. When I found out it was $50 to send one book, I was like, no, I'd have to take a second mortgage to do that. But I had a lot of friends that volunteered, and I told them it's not necessarily going to be you, but I'm going to use your name, and they're good with it. As long as I got an email with them saying you have my permission, I ran with it. But I laid down the ground rules from the get-go. It's not you. You're not writing this. You're not mandated. I'm just using your name. And they were all, when they know this up front, I think they're a lot cooler with it.
Yeah. What about you guys, DA and Robbie?
Let me go first.
Go ahead, Robbie.
I know yours is going to be a lot more because you got more. Most, like in the first book, I think what was count DA? There's like 3 people in the first book that are made up. Everybody else is based on a real person, I think. 3 to 4, something like that. So then I get the because I used a few people from my department, and then these other people in the department, why didn't you use me? I'm like, well, I used him because he was my partner. Well, for like 2 minutes we were partners before you left and went to the county. So in the second book, I had to put more people from the department in, and it's just like. But for the most part, most of them are like Luke said, they're kind of grateful. But you get those few people that are like, well, you should have said this and this, and I'm like, well, if you wanted to say that, then you by all means, you have every right to go ahead and write your own book, and you can say whatever you want it to say. But yeah, it's just like he said, it's a whole lot easier when you know the person and you can kind of build that character. But coming up, I struggle with that more than anything else in writing a book. Is when I'm trying to come up with a make believe person that I have no. It's somebody, especially somebody that's going to be kind of a central character, not just like an initial kill character, but somebody I'm going to have to keep writing that name constantly. I'm like, the hell am I going to call this person? No, that ain't good. Oh, that sucks. No, I struggle with that more than just about anything else in writing. Is coming up with because it's like you said, it can't be like Brick Die Hard or
Right.
I use a lot of baby name websites.
Yeah,
I
just do.
I do. Yeah.
For example, I'll look for like popular baby names, roughly the year the character was born, and I'll pick one out. And then if they're of like Russian descent, I'll just search Russian surnames, and then I'll pick one.
Exactly. That's what I do.
I do that all the time. However, there are a few characters that are truly based on real people. Some of them share the name, some don't. Have changed names to protect the guilty a few times. But yeah, by and large, most of my characters, if they're not, based on somebody, they've got elements of somebody that I've known, or even elements of me in it. I mean, we're writers. We can't write anything without putting something of ourselves in it.
Yeah, I'm always the central character. It's just a different name.
No, I've been accused of that with the Ragnarok books, but but if Wiley was really based off of me, if he was a real guy, he would hunt me down and put a bullet in my head for the things I've done to him.
That would be a good book.
Yeah, I've brutalized my main characters. They come through the fire, but when you take these characters, especially if you've got such a firm grasp on what their personality is, it becomes really more like you're writing about friends. These characters are more than just figments of your imagination. They're little personality segments in the back of your brain, and the conversations are just arguments you've had in your head.
Yeah. Well, that's when I wrote the Monster Squad, it had a cast of almost 50 people. And I had people ask me, how did they all sound different? They all, you don't have characters that sound the same, because I based them off people I knew. Not the same name, but in my mind, this person was D'Angelo Jones. This person was, and they had the same mannerisms, the same sense of humor, the same style of speech. And it made it a lot easier, especially in dialogue, because some people, they just talk a certain way. And I write it the way they talk. And sometimes that's not always easy to understand, but that's the way it was.
Yeah,
and it's just easier to keep your characters that way.
I've got certain characters that don't cuss. They just don't curse.
Right.
I've got other characters that don't use contractions. That makes it interesting when you're doing dialogue to go back and make sure he said don't here. I've got to go fix that. But I try to be consistent with that character, because that's who they are. That's just the way they. And then there are other characters like my character Margolin, which half the time when I write the dialogue, even I'm astounded with what comes out of that idiot's mouth. I mean, I'll be writing a scene and I'll be like, where the hell did that come from?
I'll go back. Like if I write a chapter, I'll go back and I'll read it and I'll be like, did I write that? Where did that come from? Like it just seemed to, because I've got ADHD, so I just, when I'm focused, I'm super focused, and so you're just typing away, you're typing what you're seeing in your head, and I'll go back and I go, geez, it was pretty good to have that person do that one, that character to do that. And I just get astounded sometimes. Like, I don't know where that one came from, but hey, it works. So gonna run with it.
Yeah. I've had
when you're just as surprised as the readers.
Yeah. You look up and you went from like, you were at the first of the paragraph and all of a sudden you're like 3 pages into the scene. You're like, where in the world did all that come from?
Yep.
Yeah, it just amazes me sometimes of what comes out of my head, and I do get asked sometimes, like I guess more than sometimes, but where's it come from? And it's like, I don't know, it's just in there, and it's
years of watching movies.
Yeah,
right,
and reading books and comic books.
Exactly.
I tell people all the time, literally everything a writer does is research for a book at some point.
Yep.
That is correct. Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. Because, the ideas come from everywhere, whether it's a book, movie, life in general. Just like I think we said on the last podcast, DA, sometimes we'll hear an encounter and think, oh, that would be good. And we base it off that, but turn it around a bit and run with it in a different direction. Like I was listening to one the other night, and I thought, oh, if I change this and do this, that's pretty scary. Like that scares the crap out of me. So it's like it just sort of gives you a little, I don't know, sort of, what's it, breadcrumbs. You follow sort of until you get the idea and you round it out, and that works. It can come from anywhere.
Well, like there's several scenes in DA's last book, or the one he just got come out with, Lakeview Man, Dead of Winter. There's several scenes in that book that were based on real things that happened to us when we were in Combs Ferry. And you just, like you said, you're out there in the middle of the woods, and you're not thinking, "Ooh, I bet this will," especially in the moment. "Ooh, I bet this will be a good scene in the book." But once it's over and done with, you're like, man, I remember when this happened. That would make a good scene in the book, and that's where it comes from. Sometimes you don't think about it in the moment, but then you're like, wait a minute, I bet that would be.
Well, I got a question for you guys.
Shoot.
Have you ever? I'm trying to think of how to word this so it doesn't sound stupid, but you have a thought, right? This is what you want to write. And once you start, it takes on a complete life of its own and goes a completely different direction than what you intended. Has that ever happened?
Oh, it happens all the time.
Yeah.
What I tend to do is I'll set up my basic plot. What I want to do, I do this with the chapter and the whole book, because really, what's a chapter but a small book within the book?
Right.
Every chapter's got to have a precise beginning, middle, and end. and I will have that mapped out in my head, and then I turn the characters loose, and 9 times out of 10, it ends up someplace I had no plan for.
So you do try to plot some.
I have the basics of the plot, the broad strokes of the plot, and sometimes the characters actually let me get there.
All right.
Not always, but sometimes.
Yep.
You know, and I think it's a lot of it's, you know, when you write these characters, you know, and not so much me as especially DA and Heath, and you know, Luka, you probably wrote your characters more than I wrote mine, but when you write these characters so much, and you get, like DA said, the broad strokes, and you're like, okay, I want to go here, here, and here. But you start writing, I think your brain's like, no, this is not what these people would do. This is not how this is not. And whether you know it or not, your brain is constantly referring back to how you've written these characters so many times.
Yeah.
That's how you, I mean, this is the only way I can explain it to myself anyway, is you're just on autopilot because your brain's like, nope, that's not how this will work. It would go this way. They would do this. They would do this. And then that's where you end up with this. Where the heck did that come from?
Well, earlier this year, I released a fantasy novel, and I have plans to release more. And they do tie into the main universe. But in order to bring some characters home who had gotten lost in a portal a few books before, I tied it into the fantasy world. And toward the end of the book, they finally get them brought home. Well, some characters from the main universe end up crossing over to try to help recover them. And the character of Marglin, that little shit, I mean, he gets me in more trouble, he backs me into corners. He does all the time. I'll be writing dialogue with that guy. I'm like, okay, crap, what do I do now? But one throwaway line in that fantasy novel, when he opens up on an actual dragon with a 458 SOCOM, he cuts loose on a dragon and it doesn't work. And he just goes, shit, pack for dragons, always pack for dragons. And that line came back, and yeah, it actually came back to roost in Dead of Winter, and I think it kind of came full circle and paid off.
I'll be right back, guys. I got to get a charger cord. Or
okay, not a problem.
Should I switch to the computer now that it's up?
It's up to you. If you can pop out and pop right back in.
All right, let me do that. It'd be easier. I think. Don't wait on me.
Okay. Well, Luka, what about you? Do you have that issue with your characters taking over?
They do, and I find that, you know, as we said, sometimes, excuse me, sometimes it just flows and sometimes it doesn't, or I'll get, you know, 4 chapters out of myself in one night, or, you know, another might be 1, but the way I do it, and I'm not saying it's the right way because everyone has their different ways to do it, is I'll get the whole book out as not quick as I can, but in one go. And then I come back and I refine it, you know, chapter by chapter, line by line. And I'll find that particularly with Nicole Beretti, people have just, you know, jumped on liking her and really seeing her as an actual real person kind of thing, and so do I. And I'll read what I've written and go, Brady wouldn't do that, you idiot. Or she wouldn't say it that way. She'd say that sort of thing, but in her way of saying it. And so, you know, you have this sort of argument in your head of, you know, you're an idiot. Brady would think you're an idiot. And it's like this, the character takes on a mind. It sounds like I'm rapping.
Sorry, that's me.
There we go.
There we go. But yeah, it happens. But I mean, you're not always going to like your character either. I think you can, you know, enjoy them, love them, and whatnot, and they're going to grow with you. But doesn't mean you're going to agree with everything they do.
Luka, Don Donaldson wants to know, what book would you say to read first of yours?
Probably the first book I wrote. So by the time they get to the last one, they can see improvement, which would be Night of the Dogman series. That was Night of the Dogman was the first one I wrote. So I'd say start there. Thank you. and work your way through. And hopefully, you get to the last ones that I've done. So you were like, yeah, I can see improvement there. And that's really, what keeps me going is that I notice myself, and readers will say, okay, she keeps getting better, things like that, encouragement, not all fluff. And as I said, when it comes to the criticism, I'll take it on board, absolutely. My ego is not that big where I think what I write is perfect by any means. But in anything in life, we can always improve. And if we're not improving, what's the point?
Exactly.
Yeah.
The only writer I ever try to be better than is the one I was yesterday, or the last book. I try to be better than I was on the last book I made.
Yep, absolutely. And I'll read some back. Like I went back through and because they're primarily on like Amazon, and then I thought, okay, because I read the forums or whatever, I'm going to put them on Ingram Spark as well. And I read back through some of them, and I was like, why did I write that? And to try to change it, and there's that sort of balance of, now that's the way the story was, whether I agree with it now, but I was young then, it was a year ago, so that's how I thought. And so, yeah, primarily you leave it. But there's actually a good question there for all of you guys. Are you solely on Amazon, or do you branch out and sell it wherever?
I primarily stick to Amazon simply because I get a bigger royalty share by staying exclusive, but I am looking at branching out.
Why is that?
Just to kind of get into a fresher market, because not everybody shops Amazon.
Yeah, big guys, and don't.
Yeah, I mean, it's worked pretty well for me so far, but I can see a day when I'm going to have to expand to other resources. In fact, what I may start doing is some of the older books that are no longer selling as well as they used to. I may start one by one pulling them down and then putting them back up on some of these multi-platforms.
Yeah.
Just to kind of an experiment to see how it works. I've had mixed results with writing outside my genre. I've got 3 sci-fi novels and 1 fantasy novel out so far, but they've had mixed results. I mean, they haven't sold as well as the primary horror books, but so those may be some of the first ones I try it with. But at the same time, they kind of have a following all their own. It's not as big of a following, but it's one I'm trying to cultivate. Because I started out writing zombies, and I didn't want to be pigeonholed into that. And then I branched over into horror and cryptids, and didn't want to be pigeonholed into that. So I just want to be known as a writer, not necessarily as a zombie writer or a Bigfoot writer or a Dogman writer. I just want to be known as a writer. And I hopefully, keep my fingers crossed, that I'm doing well in the other genres.
Yep, good answer. Good answer. Robbie?
Well, only 3 books into it. I'm pretty much only on Amazon right now, but I kind of probably will follow DA's lead. If he branches out, I'll probably branch out into the other places too. But I've kind of got a few other ideas on some stuff that's not going to be tied into mine and DA stuff that we're doing. I've got a kind of a man versus nature story that I want to try, kind of a survival type thing. So I'm like DA. I don't want to be, and Heath, perfect example of that. I mean, he's covered about 12 different genres, it seems like, but just kind of nothing ever grows in a comfort zone. So you always got to kind of stretch that and try to do better than you did like DA said, better than you did the book before. So
it's all about challenging ourselves.
It gets boring when you don't, and that's with anything in life, isn't it?
And one thing I've always tell, because I get asked by people like, "Hey, I'm trying to write a book. What kind of advice can you give me?" I get messages like that fairly frequently, and the best thing I tell people all the time that my best advice is, first and foremost, write for yourself, because if you don't like it, no one else is going.
Exactly.
and not to worry about negative reviews, because no matter how good the book, someone's going to hate it.
Yep.
Right. If you look on, like for Amazon, the most popular books out there with 40,000 reviews or 60,000, whatever, there's always the 1 and 2 stars. And there may be ridiculous reasons they didn't like the book, or they've got good reasons. But every single book, no matter how much it's loved, will have negative reviews.
Look at 50 Shades of Grey. The reviews, the negative reviews, are better than the book itself.
You know, I always figure when I get like a 1 star with no review, that's generally the time I figure it's probably another author trying to tank my numbers. But once in a while I'll get a negative review, and they will actually write out what they didn't like, and I kind of take that and I weigh it, and I'm like, if they've got an argument, I'll fix it. If they don't, I just dismiss it. I mean, you can't please everybody, but if they've got a valid point, it's something I'll work on.
Yep. Exactly. What about you, Heath?
I forgot the original question.
So did I. Are you wide, or are you just on Amazon? That's it.
Oh no. Well, when I started out, I went wide. I think at the best, the other markets might have provided 10%, maybe. Now I'm with that's when I was with a publisher, then I went indie, and then ended up going with Tracy Tufo, Mark's wife. And that girl, she knows her stuff. She is a marketing guru. She knows who to advertise with, and she's not afraid to try something new. And if it works, yay, she'll use it again later. If it doesn't, then she scratches it off the list. It's no longer a viable option.
Marketing's my kryptonite.
I'm sorry?
I said marketing. The marketing is my kryptonite.
Oh yeah, if it was left to me, it'd be I get on Facebook, hey, I got a new book, please buy it, and then that's all you'd hear. And
would be nice.
Existing fan base, I wouldn't have any sales. However, we in the past we had tried Kindle Unlimited, where you pay a monthly fee and you can read whatever's on there for free, and then they paid the authors, like, I think it comes down to 1/10 of 1 cent per page. So it's not much. And the most we'd ever had read, I think it was 500 pages in a month. So it wasn't making much. But when Janosko came out, for some reason, she thought, I'm going to put it on KU and see how it does. And once you sign it up on there, you got to be on there for so many months. And if you try to post it somewhere else, they'll just automatically kick you off. And I don't think you're allowed to use KU again for a while. But for some reason, Janosko took off. I put out the first 3 books was just bam, 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 back to back. It was Halloween release, then Thanksgiving, and then it was like a week after Christmas. I couldn't quite hit that Christmas market for the 3rd book. However, when the 3rd book came out, I remember we were floored because we had hit 500,000 pages read in a month.
That is awesome.
That was something. I mean, I wanted to scream it from the top of the mountain, but to most people, it's like, okay. 500,000 pages of something I wrote were read, and I mean, shoot, I might as well have been on the USA bestseller list or something, because that's how I felt. 500,000 pages. Now, since then, that was the peak. Since then, of course, it dwindled off. And it's probably near nothing now. But at that time, holy cow, that was a big thing for me. And it was just pure dumb luck. Now, whether or not she's going to eventually go out to like iBooks or Sony, or I'm not even sure what's all available right now. I think Barnes & Noble is still online.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch. You go through what used to be Smashwords. I know it got sold, but you could go to umpteen different markets. But at its best, when I was indie, and I'm not even sure it hit 10%, but that was all other markets combined was right at 10%, and Amazon has always been by far the best as far as return.
Well, I just was only last week. I'd had gone because I'm with Kindle KU, and I find that works for now. And we'll keep an eye on it. And I think I'm just looking at the stats then about what. So I'm looking at it about subscriptions, which they'll call KU or whatnot. That's 52% of my royalties. Ebook is in just buying the ebook for $5.99. It's 35%, and paperback is 13%. So that's just on Amazon. Last week I thought finally I had the time after I finished Red Eyes, and I thought, okay, well, I'd only put I think four of my first books on Ingram Spark, which then gets distributed to Barnes and Noble and a couple of other ones across the universe. And the issue is it's extremely time consuming, and I'm lucky because I'm a graphic designer, because you've got to do different cover layouts. Well, the same design, but they require a different cover, the cover done on a different template. So, and as Robbie knows, you're not always going to hit the spines correct and all that. There can be a bit back and forth sometimes. So in terms of, if just your general author that doesn't have the marketing or graphic design skills, you have to pay for that. So it gets bloody expensive. I was just lucky that, I've got that background, so I could spend the time. It's free to upload and all that. But because I wanted to change some of the text, and it wasn't major, but just, typos or things that people had said months and months ago about my first book, until I read through and I was like, a few too many typos, it's ridiculous, fix it. So I had to re-upload that to Ingram. That's $50 US. Just
Really?
to put a new version of the book. And I had 4 books that I wanted to do that with. That's why I put off re-updating them, because
Do you have an outside editor that you're using, or are you just doing your own editing?
I have an editor that just does basic editing, but majority I do it myself. So, but she runs through it before it goes live, and makes suggestions and things like that, and I'll take them on board. She's great, and shout out to Emily there, but majority myself. But one question I always like, so you're with a publisher now, Heath?
Yeah. A mom and pop publisher. She's not, we're not talking Big Five or anything.
So in terms like I'll see you on Reddit and places like that. I like being an indie. I've got control. I've got freedom. Okay. There's that side of it.
Yep.
What's the advantage of being with a publisher? Because,
sorry,
before I go with that. So I'd like to have the control over the design because that's my background. And I do all my own marketing. And I don't think I do too bad. But even saying that, what have you found the advantage to be with a publisher?
Okay, with my publisher, I can't speak for all of them. My publisher gives me a lot of creative leeway. I wanted my graphic artist. She had her people. Well, since I brought my guy in, he's very, very reasonable in his pricing, and she's adopted him. She's brought him in. He's part of the stable now as far as she's concerned. She has her editors. I'm trying to think of how to say this without it. Unless she is just dead set, like on a cover. I want a cover. And she's like, I don't like it. Well, what would you change? And she'll tell us. And if it's in the same boat that I'm in, I'll make the changes because she's got a better eye for this stuff than I do. If it's completely different, she usually just says, not my first choice, but if you like it, we'll go with it. And so we get along really great. She gives me a lot of creative freedom. The biggest advantage is she knows how to market. I don't. I wouldn't have near the sales I've got if it wasn't for my graphic artist and her, because she knows where to advertise, when to advertise, what to say when you're advertising. She knows what works, what doesn't. Now, granted, she's fronting for the editor, she's got is like a English PhD or something, and we get along great in the editing process. We've had a couple times we butt heads, but for the most part, me and the editor get along great, and she's really good at what she does, but she's expensive. Well, Tracy fronts for the editing. She fronts for the artwork. Whenever something new comes out, she'll send me 12 or 16 copies of the book to hand out, or for contest or whatever. And if I need extras for whatever reason, no questions asked. She just sends them. She doesn't, but she, whatever the sales are, we split it. She's lost money on a lot of my work, and I know she's made money on a lot of it. And somewhere along the road, it balances out to her favor. But she doesn't. She's not demanding. She's not. The only time she's ever given me a deadline is when I asked her to, because I knew if she didn't give me a deadline, I was going to keep piddling and not do what needed to be done. I needed somebody to get on my ass and crack the whip.
Yeah, I need
I don't know what she's going to have to do with this next one, because I usually take off the holidays, and I don't remember why. This was years ago. I took off for the holidays, and before I knew it, 3.5 years had passed. I hadn't written or published anything, or close to 3 years. And she came at me and was like, this is when she first signed me on. She's like, why haven't you published? Because I haven't been writing. Okay, what are your sales like? And I said, abysmal. And she said, well, let's fix that. And she started off small. She's like, do you have any short stories? Anything? Because I hadn't written anything. And the stuff that I had written short stories for a fundraiser or whatever, she took them and published them. She lost her ass on it. I think it sold 2 copies. But she had to front for the formatting. She fronted for the cover work. And then she's like, well, let's do this. And she's the one that got me back into writing with Caldera. She said, let's split it. Let's do this. And then with Caldera, she stayed with me through Hunter, through my standalones, my political thrillers, Nocturna, which was no sales. I mean, I'm sorry. I'm sure the sales on Nocturna were next to nothing, but she never said, okay, this isn't working, go to something else. She let me finish, because she knew, and it was a limited series. It was not going to be, a 12-book series. I think we got 6 books out of it. But then Janoska comes along and it makes up for all of it. She made money on Caldera.
You can't hit everyone out of the park. You just can't.
No. And even the ones that at the time that I was writing them, I thought, man, this is good stuff. It's a whole new take on vampires. It's kind of a cross between a vampire and a zombie, and it's from a space virus, which I know it sounds totally wackadoodle, but it worked. And the people who read it loved it. It's just not very many people read it.
That's the same with my fantasy and sci-fi. The people that have read it all enjoyed it. It's just not everybody's read it.
And it's getting people to step out. There's people that will only read romance. And to get them to read a supernatural romance is, you got to really twist their arm. And then they're like, well, maybe I'll read some other horror. And it's hard to get them to step out of their comfort zone. And having written in so many genres, like Robbie said, I've had a few diehard fans that read it because I wrote it, but it's not their cup of tea. They still enjoyed it. They loved it. I had a St. Nick was a story that was stuck in the back of my head forever. It's a retired Navy SEAL. It's Die Hard meets Hallmark Christmas movie type thing. And the people that have read it absolutely loved it. But I've had a lot of people that have come in and said, I wasn't going to read it because I'm not into Hallmark and I'm not into, it's a Christmas story. And no, it's a Christmas story like Die Hard is a Christmas story. Saying, so she took a chance on all of them. She's the one that's fronting for everything. And if it bombs, she bears
bombs for her too.
Most of it, I mean, she bears the brunt of that bombing. And when it does good, she recoups some of that loss. So there's advantages and disadvantages. Having the right publisher is key. One that will allow for your creative juices and will give you the leeway to do what you need to do. And I'll tell you straight up, having a bad publisher is the worst thing.
I will 100% agree with that. I first started out with a small publishing company. I'm not going to mention any names. I'm not going to say who they are.
Right.
Anybody that's been following me for any length of time will know. But my original publisher, we ended up having to threaten to take them to court. We weren't getting paid. They were making money. The books were making money, but they weren't paying out.
Right.
And anytime I'd contact them, it would get later and later because they were saying, well, we'll get paid quarterly. And then 6 months down the road, I still hadn't gotten a royalty. And then I'd say something, oh, well, we'll get you caught up next quarter. And then that quarter would roll out and nothing. So finally, I had to get a lawyer involved. I got my rights back. And they finally cut me a check, but I'm pretty sure it's nowhere near what I was supposed to get. But that was lesson learned. After that, I was pretty much on the indie bandwagon because that was right about the time that Amazon self-publishing really started taking hold. Mm-hmm. And it was a daunting process. I was like, geez, how do I do this?
Well, see, I was lucky. I didn't have to threaten a lawsuit or anything. My first publisher, when I broke away from them, it was because of personal reasons on our end. And they were really cool about it. They're like, yeah, we'll let you go. You can go indie. There was some work that had just been edited and published. I had to pay for the editing on that, which I was fine with. They were really gracious. I'll put it that way. I can't complain, but I've heard horror stories from other people that it's like once you sign with a publisher, they own your soul.
Basically, yeah.
And with Tracy, it's not like that at all. In a lot of ways, she's my work wife because, honey, can I do this? Yes, you can do that. Just got to ask permission, but it's always yes. The only time I've ever had her tell me no on something, it was covers on Hunter. I liked a cover that Jeffrey had done. I said, I want to use it. And I had a story in my head. The cover had nothing to do at all with the story, and it was causing it not to sell. So she came at me, and she finally, and on the third book, I think she said, no. They were all in the same vein. She said, this guy needed some help. He needed some work. He's a graphic artist. I'm recovering all three of them. And then they sold. Imagine that.
When I finally got my rights back, I taught myself how to do layout and formatting. Mm-hmm. And I've really over the last, well, let's see, I just released book 36, Robbie, 36. Yeah. Wow. I've kind of refined that process over the last decade. So I can do a full book layout in just a few hours. It's more time consuming now than it really is. It's not hard. It's just time consuming.
38 if you count my two that you formatted and edited.
Over the years, I formatted books for a lot of other authors too.
Well, what I did is after I got the format that I liked, that's what I write in. I open it in Word.
I do that too. I created a template in Word that's already pre-formatted the way I do things.
That's what I do, and that way, whatever it's 12 font Times New Roman, 5x7, whatever the page, the word count is for that page. Because when I was doing it, I would save it as a PDF. That way, there was no shifting after the fact. But what I wrote, if I come down, chapter 1 ends on page 16. By golly, whenever you're on page 16 in the physical book or the ebook, that's where chapter 1 ended, because that's the way it was formatted. It was just easier. I'm lazy. I'm not gonna format, a rough draft or whatever. I'm not gonna do that for every book. I'd rather just write it in that format.
And it does make the formatting and layouts much easier to do it that way.
It does.
From a graphic designer point of view, I use Word, and I see it. Even though I could use InDesign, and sometimes I will, if it calls for it, but I just use Word because I'm paying for Microsoft Office anyways. There's, I know Word back to front, and I have for 20 years. But I'll see on Reddit people like, oh, this software is for indie authors. It's $200 a year US or something like that. And I was like,
No.
You know, I don't say it to them because you don't need that software. You don't need any more costs when you can do it basically with. Some of them don't have Microsoft Word, I guess, if they've got Google.
Yeah, Google
I don't
Docs.
like writing in Google Docs because the
I don't
format
either.
is so bizarre.
It
I
is.
would much rather do it in Word. I see these ads on Facebook all the time for people, attention independent authors for $500, all format. And I'm like, no,
No.
you know, you're just ripping these people off. Stop falling for that. And you know, those are just really modern day vanity presses. Is all they are. Yeah, because they're not going to do anything for you other than upload it, which really doesn't take that much. And then they're going to take, you know, not only your money but probably a chunk of the profits.
Oh yeah, and
For sure.
AI scares the hell out of me for the exact same reasons.
Mhm.
I should say it did. It's a few months ago. There was an ad, Scrivener, I think. Is that right?
Yeah, that's
Scribbler.
I see that all the time.
Yeah,
Something like
I
that.
see that all the time.
Well,
Yeah, those AI writing programs piss me off.
I did their free trial, and I gave them because I had an idea for a book, and I wrote it all out in a little prompt, you know, and I gave them a lot of detail. Well, when I read the first 2 pages, I was like, "Holy shit! This thing can create. This is good." And I told my wife, I said, "I'm fixing to drop $200 and buy this stuff or subscribe to it, whatever the, you know." And then I kept reading, and it got a little worse. And then I read some more, and it got a little more worse. And then by the time I was in chapter 2 or 3, this thing it didn't just go off on a tangent in the left field. It went to a different ballpark and was playing soccer instead of hockey. Right? They're talking about spacemen and aliens and somebody who's living forever, and they're on this ship 10,000 years in the future. And I'm like, what the flying fuck chops and thing? What? No, this is nothing.
What the hell does this have to do with my concept?
So I went back again and I read the beginning, and I thought, you know, it started out really good, and I was jealous. But then when you realize it repeats itself over and over and over
and really all it can do is cliche.
Right. And then I told her, I said, you know, I'm glad I didn't pay that too. I'm glad I read ahead instead of paying the $200. I get a person could, if they really wanted to, go in where it keeps repeating, you know, you got these different, and it keeps repeating itself. Instead of having 12 pages in between, cut and paste and put them all together where it's all one flowing you put 10 times the work. You could have just wrote it your damn self.
Yeah.
So,
those are the books that are flooding the market, as you said, in all genres. I just happen to see them, you know, in Bigfoot.
There's going to come a time, I'm sure, that you're going to have to AI generated somewhere, because people are going to get pissed. They're going to be like, I don't want this. This is not what it was advertised to be. Somewhere they're going to have a disclaimer that this was AI generated or AI assisted or AI something, because the readers are going to demand it.
Yeah, but having said that, I agree. But I've seen some, like the guys that have got 20 books out in the last 2 months. All the covers are very similar.
Yeah.
And you can read the samples. You know, on Amazon it says, you know, read a sample or whatever. You just look at that and you know instantly it's the same cliche. It's the same.
If it's the first pages, like of what Scribbler or whatever that was, the first few pages were a really, really good read. It had me impressed, and I was scared that I was out of job. I might as well use this. But
they're not editing it, like you said. They're copying and pasting.
Yeah. I mean, it's all AI created, and they're just putting their name on it. But at the same time, and I'm just going to throw this out there, there were times when I was looking at works that were being published on Amazon that was existing works like Snow White. I'm just pulling this out of my ass, but it was something similar to that. And all it was a script that had been published as a story. But it was a script. It wasn't a book. It didn't have no description. It was a script. And it had, I don't know, a dozen or so reviews. Had been up for a couple months. And most of it were fake. Great story, loved it, couldn't put it down. Really? It was a script. It wasn't even original. I mean, you could rewrite Snow White yourself, but no. And there's a lot of that out there, and a lot of it, I think, was when people were gaming the system. That when KU first came out, if they were paid, like if you were paid a percentage of whatever your book sells. So if you sold your book for $3.99, you got a percentage of that if they finished it. And what they would do is they'd open the front page, they'd go to the back page. That book was considered read.
Get out of here.
For $50. So they'd get a percentage. And Amazon caught on quick that these were scams.
Didn't take them long.
Yeah, it didn't take long. But the more that people gamed the system, the worse it was for those of us who weren't gaming, because now we're getting a tenth of a cent per page. And it doesn't matter what your asking price is for the published works. And people did the exact same thing with Audibles. Back, we get so many free codes. You used to get paid for those. You give them out as promotional. People would listen. As soon as they redeemed it, you got paid. Well, then they caught on because people were, especially right before the holidays, they were giving out hundreds of these codes. And they had people who would download the Audible and never listen to it just to get paid. So now I think you've got to have 100 reviews from paid users, and then they reimbursed you for your promotional codes.
Another big thing that they were doing that was a pretty nasty scam there for a while was people would buy the book and then get the refund, and they got to read it for free, and you got docked.
Yeah, and there's
Amazon cracked down on that too. That bit me in the ass. About 3 years ago when that was really big, that bit me in the ass because my forecasted sales looked really great, and then I had like 60 refunds of people that, well, I want to get my money back now. I already read it. I don't need to keep it. And that tanked me.
I haven't looked at Audible in a long time because it's just depressing. I've never made a lot of money with Audible, but
me either.
I've got people who that's the only way they really read a book or listen to a book. And so I do it with, I've got a really great narrator, Maxwell Zener. The guy's got a voice like you wouldn't believe. And he's he's a natural storyteller, very good at what he does. And there for a while, it wasn't worth his time. I know it wasn't for the monthly. We were doing it on the halves, and his monthly residual was I know it was next to nothing because mine was. But then Janoskwa, it's increased tenfold. It literally, we would get, $30 or $50 a month in the past, but after Janoskwa, he decided to do it, and it's literally been tenfold, and anywhere from $300 to $500, which isn't great, but
better than nothing.
It's worth doing. So, but I still see where people refund. They won't refund. They return it. And to me, if you listen to it, you shouldn't get your refund.
I agree. If you've read it or listened to it, it shouldn't count as a refund.
No, it shouldn't.
Because you're just stealing from the author at that point.
Yeah.
Yep, and they do it. I'll go a couple of months without any refunds, and I get it. Someone, if it's legit, fine. But it just sort of comes in a wave. Like I'll get 2 on the first book, and then 1 on another one, and I'm like, I don't.
I'm listening to the whole series. At first, it's the first book, then the second, then the third, they're listening to the whole series, but they're getting ones on each.
Right, or I'll be on book 3 that they're returning.
Yeah,
and it's like you've gone through 1 and 2, you're halfway through or whatever.
That's the same way with reviews. I've gotten reviews, and the only reason I knew is because I remembered the name. The guy was like, "Oh, this book sucked," and it was horrible, and this and that, and unbelievable. And then the exact same review for book 2 and book 3 and book 4, all the way to the end of book 10. Oh, this was so horrible! I can't believe. Yeah. You read all 10 of them. If it was that bad, why did you get the second one?
It was, like I said, it was probably another author trying to tank your numbers.
Probably.
Yeah.
And as sad as that is to say, it happens all the time.
All the time.
So with Audible, so I haven't done it, but I get asked like every week, oh, is this on Audible? Like if I put out a new book or one of my ads, someone, whether they're a reader now or they've just seen the ad, is this available on Audible? And so I was contacted at the start of the year for about Night of the Dogman series, 3 books, by one of the big guys, one of the big studios. And at that time I was like, well, I don't have 1,500 at least per book to do it myself out of pocket. So, okay, we'll sign it up. And then a month later, they wanted 2 of the Nicole Beretti thrillers too to sign me up for that. So they give you a little advance. And I did my research. Okay, what do I need in the contracts? Blah, blah, blah. And I thought I did good. But I didn't do timeline. And I mean, I don't have much patience, but people are asking for them now. So that was January. Night of the Dogman book 1 was, or book, all 3, I signed on the dotted line. Okay. They just 2 weeks ago let me know that the first book will be ready November 28th.
Wow.
Nearly 1 year to do 1 book. So by that time, the Nicole Beretti ones, it'll be like 4 years from now. And I had to hassle them. I kept saying, oh, and this is like, this is normal. And I'm like, it's not normal for me. People are asking now. And they want to read my books now. Like, you know, I'm not saying I'm popular, but without lack of better word, I'm popular now. I might not be next year when you've got around to damn well voicing them and producing them.
Well, my question is, when you put it up on Audible, is it different in Australia than it is US? Because in the US,
see, I can't. Yeah, Audible is not, or ASX is not allowed. We can't get it for Australia. Okay, so as an author, I can't use ASX, but I can use Findaway Voices, and that will distribute to Audible. So the other day, because I've got Forest of the Sasquatch series 2, 3, possibly soon to be 4, I went, okay, I'm in a bit better position now. I'm going to look for my own narrator. And I've been looking for a while. So I think I found one. We've come to, you know, a reasonable deal, time frame, and everything that I didn't include in the first one, that time frame. And now I get, you know, after you pay out the amount of $1,000 or whatever, I'll get the profit once I, you know, make back that $1,000. Hopefully.
You're not splitting with anybody. You keep it
right. And I've got a bit more control there, but at least, you know, is it 1 book in 1 month or whatever, or thereabouts. That's what we're going for. That's what his job is. So, you know, if there's other authors out there that are listening, it was good when I first did it and signed the contract for someone and a studio to do it for me. Well, that made sense because not many of us have got $1,500 to $2,000 to do per book, right? It made sense then. But if I could go back, because now I've signed the contract on the Night of the Dogman and 2 of Beretti's, I can't get out of that without, you know, giving back their money that they gave me as a not a deposit, but you know, an advance. Yeah. Cost me a lot of money to get out of it. So I just have to be patient and wait for their process. And it could be a couple of years before they get done. It's ridiculous. But if that's the way it is, that's the way it is. Can't do anything. But still annoying.
Yeah.
But and then, as you said, there's no guarantee I'm going to do good on Audible.
Right.
Just because there's people that will only listen through Audible and they don't read, they'd rather listen. Well, it may be good for a month and I might sell a bit, but then it may taper off and, you know, it's not going to be worth it. So it's a huge gamble for an indie.
Well, I know with Audible themselves, they went through a deal, well, this is a while back, where they were like the creators. They would, you know, they would contract with you, they'd pay you in advance, they would create the Audible, they would, you know, advertise and everything, and once they had made back their advance, then you split it somehow. Right. And right when I was about to get in on that is when AI became threatening. And rather than them hiring narrators and creating, they want to just use AI to read your book. And,
Right.
there's a lot of it that it can, but then there's emotional parts, or, when you're building up to something big or a fight, they can't put in that inflection that's fixing to happen.
Right.
And so anyway, it all kind of got the rug pulled out from under me on that one. And
I did. Sorry, go on.
No, I ended up going back to the guy that I've been using.
Right, you kind of get when it comes to these things where you've got to lay out a lot of money, and for some of us, that's our full-time job. Other times it's just a hobby, and it gives us a few extra bucks to go towards bills.
Right. Yeah.
It's not like we're raking in what Stephen King is. It'd be nice.
Yeah.
I've jokingly said that if Stephen King woke up tomorrow with my sales, they'd find him hanging from his shower curtain.
Yeah.
That'd be a book in itself. Yeah. All right.
He'd have Stephen's. Yeah.
Right. I've got to remember what I was going to say with that.
Sorry.
Oh yeah. No. You're right. It's just my head. So yeah, and I did the AI ones. As you said, Amazon said, "Hey, what do they call it? They call it something. They got their little name for it, which is AI voice." So I did my single books, just the by themselves books. That they'd sell all right, but nothing to write home about. So I did those because they're not my popular ones or anything like that.
That's a good risk to take, though. I mean,
and it didn't cost me anything.
Right.
And people have listened to it, and I'll make a few bucks off it. Nothing, as I said.
Well,
but the big guys, like the big serious ones, absolutely human voices. I wanted that emotional voice. I wanted human, and I know some people will not read it if it's not, or not listen. It's not human.
Right.
So I thought, let's do the lesser books. Just do the free. If someone wants to buy it on Audible, they can. No big difference to me. That's great if they all listen to it. But the big ones, the really important ones to me, definitely a human.
Yeah.
But they cost money, so you've got to weigh that up.
Well, something else to consider. Tracy, my publisher, she found some software that converts written word English to foreign languages. The one she found was for German, and she did a deep dive on research of this, and the people that have read the books that were converted said it's not perfect. It's not a perfect translation because grammar and syntax and all that, it's all slightly different when you go from one language to another, but they said that it was close enough that they had no gripes, they had no complaints, they really enjoyed the story. So she bought the software and she took book 1, and it's out in German. Now, I don't know if it's done anything. I don't know if it's doing it very well, but she said if it does make some sales, she's going to convert the others. Now, I'm all for it. Open up a new market, because when I was indie, I would get the reports in, and I was shocked at how many, Japan, India markets that, don't normally speak English, how many sales I had in those areas. If she can use software and be able to keep readers happy and break into a new market, I was all for it. I had nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. I love when I see or get contacted by someone. Like one of my good readers, he's a funny guy from the Netherlands.
Yeah.
And it's like, I would never have even thought that someone there would be interested in my books or in that genre, Like,
now you're just internationally acclaimed writer, Luka T. Jacobs.
What was that, sorry?
I said, now you're internationally acclaimed writer.
Yeah, well, now I can say that, I'll get a t-shirt off it. But no, it's just, like, as I said in that last podcast with you guys, DA and Robbie, I was just so surprised one person reads my book. let alone, people from different countries. And obviously it's a different country. You guys are in a different country to me. But yeah, my market is obviously the States more so than it is Australia. And yeah, sending books would be handy if I could send them within Australia, but sending them to the States, heck no.
Yeah.
So I lose out on that sort of thing, but it is what it is.
You have any issue with readers coming back with, certain, certainly there's Aussie idioms that mean one thing in Australia that doesn't mean the same thing here.
I have to be like, you should see my Google search of do Americans use, whatever it is. Like, do they call it a sink or a tap? Like, do they call it a tap? Oh, I know this because I lived there a bunch. But, do they call it a tap or a faucet? That's just an example, right?
It is now starting to be cute.
I did an interview with an Aussie podcast one time, and he kept repeating the phrase "the duck's nuts," and I'm like, "What the hell does that mean?"
Never heard of it.
He had to explain it to me. I was like, "Okay, that's a new one on me."
Yeah, I pick it up when I come back through because I've got to use, the spellings that an American would spell with.
Right.
We use Z's and we use S's for a lot of things. Like realization, stuff like that.
Like in neighbor
neighbor. Yep, you don't use
armor.
Yep.
Oh, endless.
What sucks is when I was little, like first and second grade, I went to school out in California. We had a teacher that taught us both. So I was in high school, and I had to stop and think. Do I put is check CHECQUE or no? If neighbor got a U in it, I got to think. And it threw me because she taught us both ways. And when I'm reading, if I read it one way, it doesn't catch up here.
Yeah.
Well, like my character William Grey Eagle, I spell it Grey only, whereas most Americans spell it GRAY. But it's just a habit with me.
And I'm the same way. I interchange the two all the time.
Yeah. And it always pops up when I do the spell check.
Yeah.
You want it grey, and then I'll have to remember, what do Americans spell it like? It makes no sense to me, but that's the way these Americans spell it. But I notice on, like even when I do marketing or I'm on my Facebook page, if I'm talking to my readers, I use American spelling because it wasn't with my writing. It was years ago on my website when I was doing graphic design. And of course, I'm an Aussie-based business, but again, for some reason, I had a lot of American clients. And I'd get emails from people saying, that's not how you spell neighbor. You really learn how to spell. What the hell? All right. And I'll be like, if you Googled, or if you were educated as you seem to think you are, not everyone spells the same as Americans, know? But they thought they were really smart telling me I couldn't spell. It's like, yeah, actually I can, and I know more than you because I know two countries don't spell the word the same.
When anybody points stuff out like that, I just go, shoot, I'm a graduate of Lebanon High School. I learned to conjugate the words he, be. I mean, come on now, I'm just a hillbilly.
Yeah.
You're lucky I use grammar at all.
So I don't even, my emails or Facebook, whatever, I don't speak Aussie. I speak American, so I don't get anyone going, you're a dummy. It's like, okay, fine.
You're not a dummy, you're an Aussie.
I'm just going to change my author photo to me wearing bibbed overalls and no shirt.
With a glass,
stalk of hay in my mouth and a glass of moonshine.
I was say a mason jar of moonshine.
Yeah, it's got to be in a mason jar. Got to be in a mason jar.
I'll put me riding a kangaroo at the beach or something. In the desert. I get it always a lot, like, g'day and crikey and whatnot. And it's like,
I had fun. Frank Riley is actually a Scotsman. I don't know. He's in that Get Zucked group. He was. And Frank, he is a Scotsman. He was a Royal or not Royal Marine. What is it? Not Her Majesty's. Anyway, Scottish Marine. And so when I wrote Janoskua, I had fun looking up some of the different expressions that the Scots use. Some of them are so off the wall. You're like, that's why I had the little Indian guy out of here. He was like, what the fuck did he just say? I don't know, but it sounded good.
Yeah, you did that really well with that, because I read it and then I was like, this is exactly how that person would speak.
Well,
and it's written that way, you know?
I asked Frank beforehand if I could, and he told me to go for it. And my editor even threw in some that I missed that she thought would fit good, and they did. They fit really well.
Mm-hmm. Well, I like writing. Yeah, the I guess the hillbilly talk or whatever, y'all and stuff like that. Because even as Aussie as I am, writing that,
Northern Missouri, it's Ewans.
I love it. I just love it.
Yuns. It's not Ewans, it's Yuns.
Yuns.
Yeah.
That's y'all plus 3.
I've got to have a balance though, because clearly I'm not from there, but at the same time I want that person to sound like a country folk.
Yeah.
And I have fun with that, you know, speaking like that, because that's cool. Like, it'd be hilarious to speak like that. But yeah. But I don't want to do it a disservice where I overdo it and go, look,
right. Oh, you get some people from like Eastern Tennessee, Kentucky that, man, that drawl is so strong. You almost think it's fake. But it's not.
Doc, get a few drinks and Doc and listen to how thick his Mississippi accent gets.
Oh, Lord. Oh, and another one that's hard, I get a few drinks in them with Cajun, because they'll bounce between French Creole and, oh, geez, I don't have a clue what they're saying.
We had a guest on one time who was a zombie writer from just outside of Glasgow, Scotland. Oh. And I, off the top of my head, I cannot remember his name. I apologize, brother. I cannot remember off the top of my head. I'd have to go back and look. He's a real good dude. He's a good writer. But when he gets wound up, that Glasgowian accent comes out, and he got on a roll. And me and my buddy Steve were just looking at each other, going, "What in the hell is he saying? Is that even a language?"
Hey, my submarine used to refit out of Holy Loch, Scotland, and we'd get out on shore leave. And this is back when I used to drink a little, and I didn't do it to be disrespectful, but I'd end up picking up the accent, and I started repeating, and I couldn't stop, and I offended some of them, and I was like, I've got to go back to the boat before I get my ass whooped, because I'm not meaning to do this, but I get around people that have a heavy accent. Next thing I know, picking it up.
I remember once I nearly got punched in the car park of a bar up in Maine because some random guy, couldn't understand what I was saying.
Oh,
so an Aussie accent with a few vodkas in her.
Yeah,
probably he was right. He wouldn't have been able to understand me. And my friend, pulled me away and said, "You're about to get punched in the face." And I was like, friendly locals, wow. But it was just funny. Punched in the face because of my accent. You guys have the accent, not me.
Yeah, no shit.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, my accent was way worse than it is now. I've worked pretty hard to try to ditch as much of it as I could. But when I was a kid, I was just absolute freaking bibbed overall wearing hillbilly. And when I joined the Army, like the first week in the Army, one of my drill instructors was like, "Where in the hell did they dig you up?
Yeah.
What the hell language are you speaking, boy?
Where are you from? The only thing from there is steers and queers. I don't think horns. Steers don't have horns."
That's right.
What I find interesting, though, when it comes to accents in the States, like, as I said, I lived in Chicago. They got their own.
Yep.
Not as,
Brooklyn has their own.
Yeah, and Minnesota, of course. Also, I lived up, Canada and Calgary. But what we don't have that kind of difference in our accents here. We just don't across the country. Some people will say, they can tell, oh, yeah, you're from South Australia or whatever.
You're from
you can tell what
New Zealander?
Sorry?
Can you tell a New Zealander from an Aussie?
Yes, but even though it sometimes, because they'll say like the word been, like I've been somewhere, right?
Yeah.
They'll go, I've been somewhere. That's
Big.
how you can tell a Kiwi, right?
Okay.
But it will take me a while listening. So, like Russell Crowe, they say he's Aussie, but he was brought up in
More English.
in Kiwiland, New Zealand. So he'll say it a few times if he knows if he's not speaking with an American accent in a movie. But yeah, we just don't have that diversity when it comes to accents here. But the only difference is, say, someone I grew up on the coast, I grew up in the city. If you went to the middle of Australia, you'll hear them talk, I guess, similar to, like you'd see on Crocodile Dundee or whatever. They'll talk like that there, but you wouldn't catch someone who's talking like that here. That's the difference. That's it. Whereas you guys, you go 2 streets away and you've got a different accent and you've grown up there.
One of the funniest conversations I've ever heard in my life was in basic training in the Army, listening to a guy from South Boston and a guy from South Georgia arguing. I'm like, I don't understand what either of these idiots are saying, but it sure is funny.
Same thing. A guy from Chicago who north side was arguing with a guy from south side, and it's complete. I mean, you could tell they had accents, but it was completely different. And we're just talking a few blocks.
Right.
Same thing with
How's that happen? How's that happen over there? What are you guys doing?
We're just weird.
I think it's how you're raised. People talk a certain way, and then you can go one town over. Especially you get up north, Minnesota, Wisconsin, places like that. Well, now you get up there, you gotta speak Arabic.
Well, there are certain phrases that you can hear. You'll know immediately where you hear somebody go, "Don't you know?" Yeah. Don't you know?
And the further north you get, they like to add that Canadian "eh" to the end of the
Yeah. Mm-hmm. They did. But yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We got a bit of a nor'easter coming in, don't you know?
Don't you know? Eh?
I just find the accents and just so many variations.
And it's all English.
Variations of English. Just like
variations.
I'm speaking a variation of English. But then, the English folks speak another variation of English.
Yep.
And you've got your Americans. It's hilarious.
We're a people separated by a common language.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. In our own ways to use it, I guess.
I think the best variations isn't language, it's the food. You get up in the Northeast where they boil everything and it's tough like a shoe leather, and then you get down south where people home cooking, like what I'm eating, biscuits,
fry
and
everything,
greens and fat bag. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, now you're talking my language. We call beans, fried taters with a ham hock in it. Oh, that's Ozark Mountain steroids right there, boy. You grow your big old hillbillies on that.
Yeah.
Biscuits, I just can't get on board with. It's just hilarious that you guys call them biscuits.
Yeah, not
cookies,
sweetheart. A scone with gravy. Not gravy. Sauce. I watch the British kids eating. That's not a biscuit. That's a scone. No, it's not.
Nope, that's a biscuit.
Yeah, sauce. Gravy.
I remember. I think it was the first time.
Big old cat head biscuit.
Yeah, damn right.
I saw
it with big old chunks of sausage in that gravy.
I saw a biscuit for the first time when I went over to LA when I was 17, and it was from McDonald's, like at the airport. What do you get for breakfast, right? We're hanging waiting for the next connecting flight or something like that. So we're here in the McDonald's menu. We have McMuffins for breakfast, right?
Yeah.
English muffin. That's what we used to. Go over there and you get this hard biscuit thing that you can throw at the floor and it will bounce back up. And you call it a biscuit. And I'm like, what is this concoction?
Reminds me of the old Blues Brothers song. What do you want for nothing? A rubber biscuit?
Yeah.
And then
bow.
Biscuits and gravy. And I'm just,
now now I want a big old plate of biscuits and gravy.
I do too. Actually, I was sitting here thinking about smoking some ribs. And you ever made your own corned beef from scratch?
Not from scratch, no.
Oh, I would get a brisket that's too big to smoke. I cheat. I used to try to compete, and I found out that when I'm feeding a family, I don't care about presentation. It's got to taste good. So I'll smoke a brisket for about 5 or 6 hours, and I bring it in. I've got this big, what does she call it? It's not a Dutch oven. It's like
I use the hell out of my Dutch oven.
It's like a cross between a Dutch oven and a crock pot. It's a big, I forgot what it's called, but it's huge. And if the brisket will fit in there, I just throw it in that with a little bit of water, and we finish cooking it off in there. And it's every bit as good as one you wrap in paper. My smoker is a cold smoker, so anything I finish has got to be finished in the oven, because I don't use a Traeger, I don't use pellet grills. But I got a hold of a brisket that was just too big for a cooker, and I thought, I'm going to make corned beef. And nobody in the family knew what it was, because we never really had it except when I was little. And I love corned beef. I love pastrami too. So I corned it, and then the kids were like, "Holy crap, that was good!" Yeah. Well, let's smoke some, making it pastrami. You want to talk about good? Make it.
My mom used to make the best corned beef hash. Oh,
Hash is in potato.
And you chop up the corned beef into little bitty pieces and add all the grease to it, and then you cube up taters real small so they fry up good, and you just fry it up like you would fried potatoes. So you get some burnt parts of that corned beef, and those are really the best. Salty as shit. I mean, they are really salty.
It's bad for your salt intake, but oh my god!
You melt some hot cheese in there. Oh my god! It's amazing.
That's eating right there. Oof.
Yes, it is. That is soul food right there, bro.
Interesting. Might have to try that one.
And then
We would have mashed potato.
That's my favorite way to eat corned beef is in hash.
Yeah. Well, no, for me it's a sandwich. I don't know, Firehouse Subs. If you ever go there and you want a good sandwich, the New York Steamer is pastrami and corned beef on one sandwich. Oh my god, is it worth? Oh.
You know, I can't go to Firehouse without getting the spicy meatball. That's my favorite sandwich there. Oh my! Get the spicy one. Oh, whoo! You'll have a bad case of spicy butthole later, but it's worth it.
I don't know. I'm kind of a fool for that steamer. I love that combination of pastrami and corned beef. Oh,
Have them throw some jalapenos on if you're glutton for punishment.
I used to be. I've gotten where my wife's got a real soft mouth. Anything spicier than ketchup, she can't handle. And so I've got to really watch how I
like my spice. Oof.
Mo
hotter, mo better.
Yep. I used to, but in the last 10 or 15 years, my resistance has dropped. Fresh jalapeno about send me to the moon.
I'll pay for it later, but I gotta have it.
It's worth it at
It's
the time.
worth it.
You'll hear me in the other room going, "Oh God, what the hell is that?"
Come on, ice cream.
you gotta eat
Bring me a vanilla cone. Bring me some chopstick. Bring me something.
Ice
Something
cream.
rolled up there.
You got to eat the ice cream after it. That way, when you're sitting on the toilet, you're like, "Come on, ice cream!"
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Oh, we're terrible.
Dadgummit.
Have we got 2.5 hours?
We're coming up on the third hour.
Wow.
We need to wrap this up so I can go eat something. I'm going to raid the fridge.
Oh yeah, I'm wanting biscuits and gravy. I'm like, man.
And ribs. I want ribs with biscuits and gravy. I've never had it.
Oh, dude, that sounds good.
It
It's
does.
1:30 Sunday here, so I'm off for lunch. You made me hungry now.
Oh, that's right. Time change. Time difference.
Yeah. Lunchtime for us.
All right, DA up there, are you in the area of Missouri where all the barbecue sauces are vinegar based?
No, that's mostly South Carolina, but we do. Missouri does a lot of dry rubs, but we're kind of equal distant from Kansas City and St. Louis. St. Louis, everything's that dry rub, and Kansas City, everything's got that sauce. So I'm a little bit of both. I like a good saucy barbecue. It's all about the sauce.
We were in eastern Missouri, and it was vinegar based barbecue sauce, and I was like,
I've had it, don't really care for it. Out in South Carolina, they're real big on mustard base too, which is pretty good.
I want to try the white barbecue sauce. I've seen different ways that they've made it, And
Greg House says it's good. I've got to try it. We went up to South Carolina 4 or 5 years ago on vacation, and we ate at this place in Myrtle Beach, right there on Boardwalk on the beach, called Sweet Carolines. What else would a barbecue joint in South Carolina be called but Sweet Carolines? So we go in and they make their own sauce. They've got all these sauces that they make. And so we're sitting there eating and I'm trying different ones, and they set one on the table like, this one's made with the Carolina Reaper. I'm like, yep, not eating that one. And my sons are like, come on, Dad, you got to try it. And I'm like, okay, fine. So I take a piece of, pulled some rib meat, because you can just take the ribs right off the bone.
right.
So I dip it, just barely touch it to that sauce. And my oldest son's like, come on, Dad, go big or go home. You got to do it. I'm like, all right, screw it. So I dipped it in. I dipped the whole thing in there, just got it real good and sauced up and popped it in my mouth. And I went, and that's about all I got before all I felt was pain. I didn't taste anything anymore. They said they could watch like on a cartoon, like the steam rising in my face. I turned beet red. There's sweat breaking out on top of my head because I didn't have a hat on. I had this like 32-ounce slugger of beer. I grabbed it and I'm like, down that, grabbed the pitcher of water on the table, down that, and then down the beer, the next beer that the waitress brought me, and I was still like, I'm on fire.
Yep.
So no more Carolina Reapers for me. I like spicy, but that's not spice, that's pain.
I had a buddy send me some mango habanero salsa.
That's pretty good. I've had that.
It was really good.
But the Carolina Reaper, dude, oh, Jesus. No.
He told me it might be a little spicier than your average habanero because he grew it right next to the Reapers. And it's true. If you grow a bell pepper next to a hot pepper, that bell pepper is now a hot pepper. I don't know how, I don't know why, but somehow it picks up the heat from what's growing next to it. And hot peppers will do the same thing. And he told me, he said it's got good flavor, but it'll come back and bite you. It'll build up on you because it was grown right next to the Carolina Reaper. And I was like, why would you grow Carolina Reapers? That's for a dare. That's not to actually eat. That was to try to set a record. You don't actually.
Yeah, it just tastes like pain.
Yeah. And he's like, oh, no, we eat them all the time. He had some kind of little red, like a bird's eye type pepper that he'd got that was Korean. And they cook with it, and one little pepper it'll spice up a whole big dish. But he said if you get it, you just spit it out. You're not supposed to eat it. He didn't found out the hard way. They'd cooked up something. He got it. He just swallowed it because it hurt too much to chew. And he said for the next 2 days, he could feel where that pepper was in his intestinal tract. He could point where it was until it came out. And it was not a pleasant experience when it came out. And when they mentioned it, he said, you don't eat those. You spit them out. Well, I didn't know. I didn't want to be rude. That's not rude.
Wow.
I do not recommend eating Carolina Reapers.
No.
Just don't.
I'd have to go to hospital. I'm like your wife, Heath. Anything worse than, say, pepper, like just, salt and pepper, can't do it. Can't stomach it. I just don't see why you want to put yourself through pain to enjoy a meal.
You build a resistance to it, and there's really good flavor. Jalapenos have an awesome flavor. Habaneros have a really good flavor if you can handle the heat. But anything over that, to me, it's just overkill. You're doing it for bragging rights. You're not doing it because of flavor. There is no flavor. It's like pouring nitric acid in your mouth. You're doing it because look how tough
you're doing it because you hate yourself.
Yeah. Punishing yourself for something you're gonna do, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Interesting.
Yeah, if I wish my boys had filmed it. I really do, because they were too busy laughing. But there would have been a good 30 seconds where I was literally trying to wipe it off my tongue with a napkin.
It would have been funny for everyone else around you.
Yeah.
I can laugh about it now, but at the time I was like, why did I listen to you? You hate me.
I run into a few of those where you try to dilute it with something else and it doesn't dilute. No, not doing it.
Yeah, I'm happy to stay away from them.
Y'all, this has been awesome. I have thoroughly enjoyed having you both on here. But we're coming up on the 3-hour mark.
We need to shut her down. I got to go eat something.
Yeah, I'm getting pretty dang hungry myself. Why don't y'all tell us again where to find your books, and we'll put the links up in the chat again. And again, thank you guys for hanging out with us. This has been a blast.
Oh, anytime.
Luka, you want to tell us all about your stuff?
Really enjoyed myself. Thank you guys for the invite. And thank you for everyone that's been in the chat and watching now and after. My book's available at Amazon.com, but also my website, LukaTJacobs.com. Thank you, guys.
Well, mine are on Amazon too. They're, I would say go to my website, but it just links you. If you go to the works page, it links you right to Amazon. So that's the easiest way to get them.
Riley, where do we find your books?
Same place, Amazon.com, or soon to be on our new website the DA is working on, which should be pretty soon, right, DA?
It's coming.
Yep.
You can find Robbie books everywhere that great American literature is offered. So.
I don't know what books you've been reading, Heath.
Erotica.
We'll get you that. Yeah, erotica. I can't read it. I can't. I had trouble writing it.
Uh-huh.
I used to teach Jeff. He's like, "Oh, you got to do it." I said, "No, look, you got to have sex to be able to write about it. It's been so long, I've forgotten."
Yeah. I knew DA would fuss at me, but I started to say it earlier, but I knew DA would fuss at me if I said it. I started to say, "Yep, welcome to the show with 3 great writers and 1 guy that's trying to be a writer." But I knew he would fuss at me if I said it, so I didn't say it.
I'm trying hard. 13 years into trying to be a writer, so.
And you can find all of my books in bathroom stalls and truck stops across the country. Or if you're so inclined, Amazon.com or DARoberts.net.
A lot of people do their best reading on the toilet. So
that is true.
That's true.
That is true. There's a book series called The Bathroom Companion. I've got a ton of those in my bathroom.
Every year for Christmas, my wife would get me one. So yeah,
you learn all kinds of great useless facts out of it.
It had really good stuff in there.
Oh, absolutely. Folks, thank you guys for hanging out with us tonight. This has been an absolute hoot and a half. I've really thoroughly enjoyed this. I hope you guys will join us this coming Wednesday night when we will be joined by author Keith R.A. DeCandido. Keith R.A. DeCandido will be joining us on this coming Wednesday night. And next Saturday, we will have Jesus Payon from Breaking Bad. And coming up in the near future, I'm still waiting to firm up a date. Jonathan Mayberry will be returning to the channel for his 3rd visit, so we're looking forward to having him back on the show as well. And we're gonna be doing this. We're gonna call the segment the Authors Lounge, and from time to time, we're just gonna bring authors in and talk about books and have laughs like this, and tell spicy butthole jokes and all kinds of crazy stuff. And you learn things like never knew Heath wrote smut, but apparently he does.
Nah. Let the cat out of the bag.
You're gonna leave that one down.
Yeah, I love it. I absolutely love it, dude. That just floored me. But you have got to, if you do another one, you have got to put Alan Gamboa in it.
He will definitely. He might end up being the star.
That would be the best. I will share the hell out of that on social media.
I'm glad that Alan's got the personality he's got, because if there's anybody else that catches as much flack as him, probably go postal.
Alan is a great sport, but he gives as good as he gets. He really does.
He's very good at giving.
He can dish it out and take it.
Yep.
But folks, again, thank you guys for hanging out with us. Make sure you check out Luka and Heath's books on Facebook and on Amazon. Give them a like, share, and subscribe. Pick up copies. Buy copies for your friends. Buy a copy for everybody you know.
Perfect Christmas gift.
Absolutely. We've got Christmas coming up in a few months. They make great gifts. And folks, thank you guys again. I would be remiss if I didn't mention a subject that's very near and dear to my heart. I want to mention the 22 a Day Foundation. We lose 22 veterans a day to suicide, and that is 22 too many. So reach out to your friends and family who are veterans or still even on active duty or even were in the reserves. Reach out to anybody that wore a uniform, including first responders. Let them know you think about them. Let them know you care, because you never know when your text might be the one thing that keeps them off the edge that day. Because at least 22 times a day, the hard days are winning. And let's get 22 down to 0, because that's where it needs to be. And again, I want to thank you guys for hanging out with us. And we're going to close out the show with a toast. And it's something we've been doing quite a bit, and it's something I want to continue to do. Toast is from an old Irish drinking song. Doesn't matter what you've got. I've got some leftover cold coffee now. But it's an old Irish drinking song called The Parting Glass. And when you listen to the lyrics, it's more than just about saying goodnight to somebody at the end of the night in the pub. It's about saying goodbye to the ones we've lost along the way. And I've buried enough friends under folded flags. I've got plenty of people I can toast. But the chorus goes like this. But since it fell into my lot that I should rise and you should not, I'll gently rise and softly call. Good night. And joy be to you all. Slanja Ma, thank you for being with us, and we'll see you on Wednesday night.
Slanja.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Catch us again Wednesdays and Saturdays on DAX Machina. A special thanks to all our channel members and Patreon supporters. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe.